scores! Dylan Holloway with a slap shot between the circle and the blue line. Beats Talbot. Fowler over to Parayko. Parayko slaps it just wide and picking it up. Shin to the middle. Holloway. He scores! Dylan Holloway snaps a wrister from the hash marks to the back of the net. Clear the puck down as Detroit's pulled their goaltender. Holloway moving in. Hat trick. If you've got a hat, chuck it at your radio. Dylan Holloway sped to the open net, tucks it in, and the Blues get their first hat trick of the season. Holloway's first career hat trick, and a 4-0 St. Louis Blues lead. 4:06 to go, third period.
That's what it sounded like right here in your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN last night, as the Blues get a much-needed victory. And more importantly, maybe, they get a big night out of guys that needed it. They needed to find, Alex, their secondary scoring. They got it in droves with a hat trick from Dylan Holloway. Our guy, Alex Texier, a man that we never gave up on here on BK and Ferrario. He puts in a goal with a beautiful shot as well. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Jordan Binnington with a huge night last night defensively. I think they're starting to figure this thing out defensively. I have questions on the offensive side of things that I think are going to be there for a while. Will that secondary scoring be able to last long term? Defensively, Alex, I think they're tightening up. I think you're starting to see Jim Montgomery's influence really show in a meaningful way there. You're not seeing as many high danger chances against. And last night, Jordan Binnington made the saves when you needed him to. He had that, was in the second period, about a 3-minute stretch where they had a bunch of shots going on net. He made every save that he needed to there. Just an overall good performance from the Blues last night. I want to start, though, with the man that had his first hat trick in the NHL. What'd you make of what we saw last night for Dylan Holloway? He is now back to being on pace for 30 goals this season.
Yeah, you went through, what was it, a stretch of about 5 or 6 games where he did not pick up a goal, did not pick up a point. And I think a lot of people, like me included, was thinking like, okay, maybe it was just a little bit of streakiness and that's what you're going to get. But, man, then Dylan Holloway just opened up the floodgates last night. And I think it goes to show you Holloway's able to score from a lot of different areas, whether he's in front of the net. Last night, he took 2 different one-timers from different parts of around the high-danger area. I mean, the one was above the face-off dot. The other one was right next to the face-off dot, but they're both one-timers. This guy's got an elite shot. He's in the 99th percentile in terms of shot on NHL Edge. He's got the speed. He's got the ability to find the open space. And what last night showed me was when you go through about 4 or 5 games where you're not getting on the scoreboard, but you're still picking up 2-3 shots a game, that dam is going to break at some point. And I mean, with Dylan Holloway, one goes in, this is a guy that could put 2 or 3 in the net. And that's the depth of scoring that you need. Last night, he was playing so well that Jim Montgomery pushed him up to the top line. Now, we've said a lot, like, why not put Dylan Holloway play with Robert Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich? Because if Holloway's playing on that top line last night, I don't know if you get that secondary scoring. I don't know if you get Shen being a part of the offense. I don't know if you get Texier being a part of the offense if you put it all on one line. So Dylan Holloway last night, 3 shots, 3 goals. I don't expect that to happen every single night, but this is a guy who can be a 30-goal scorer in the NHL.
He can be, and now you're starting to develop that, right? Like, you got, I think, Jake Neighbors, even if you're not seeing the 30-plus, 25.
Yeah.
Robert Thomas, 25-plus. I think Kyrou and Boot should both be in that 30-plus conversation every year.
Especially now that Boot is a winger.
Is probably going to be in that range as well. That's 5 players that I just mentioned that should be in that 25, 30-plus range for the foreseeable future. You hope that you can add Bolduc into like the 15 to 25 goal scorer range. We'll see where he ends up on that, but you've seen the shot at a minimum. He plays the game the way that you'd like to see. Dvorsky projects to be a guy that could be a 20-plus goal scorer. Snuggerud projects to be a 20 to 25-plus goal scorer, depending on where you're at with his range. You can see what the vision is for what they're trying to build here, and now it's just continuing to add those pieces into the mix. Every year they're trying to add 1, maybe 2 pieces into that mix, and we're starting to see it come to fruition. Let's go to the defense, because Binner with a huge performance last night. I said, Alex, you said previously you wanted to see the offense.
Yeah,
let's see what they look like after getting some of that practice time, finally. I said I wanted to see Binner, because it had been a rough few games for him, and honestly, rough season outside of the first little stretch there for him. He looked great last night. A lot of that, I do believe, is because it's a reflection of what's happening in front of him.
Yep.
I think Benner, if you ask him to make a couple of huge saves, he can make those for you. If you ask him to stand on his head from start to finish and he's overworked, I think that's where you start to get in some issues. Not any goalie, but especially for Jordan Binnington during the regular season. What are you seeing structurally from this team right now, Alex? Because it seems like they're playing more sound defensively in front of their own net.
Well, and that Binnington's performance last night, he made the saves when he needed to, but that is a game that I credit to the defensive play all around, because Detroit couldn't get the puck out of their own zone. And when they finally did, they had to exhaust all options to try and get a couple of shots on goal. And when they did, Binnington steered it away, but there was no sustained zone time by Detroit. And that's what I meant by you get a little bit more practice with Jim Montgomery. You work out some of those mistakes that take place on the ice. But to me, that was an impressive performance for Binnington because he didn't see a shot on goal. There were two separate occasions from the first and second period. He did not see a shot in a 7-minute window. So, think about that from a goalie's perspective. You don't see a shot for 7 minutes, and then all of a sudden it's boom, boom, boom. You get a flurry of shots. It's not an easy thing to do, and Binnington made those saves. But, man, you look at how they played defensively. You gave up a total of 3 high-danger scoring chances to Detroit in the first and second period combined. In the first and second period, you gave 9 total scoring chances. And Berube had told us in the past, you give up less than 12 scoring chances, you're playing a really good defensive game. Now, they gave up a little bit more in the third period, expected that. It's a stingier team right now. They're getting these details that Jim Montgomery's talking about, and when you isolate those and don't make the mistakes that they made against Florida, that they made against Tampa, giving up those odd man rushes, giving up those high danger slot shots with nobody around, your goalie's going to be able to make those saves for you. So that was an all-around performance that I think a lot of people were wondering if they were getting away from. And me personally, I think this was more so they'd make a mistake in the game, and they could not go back and work on it in a practice. They'd basically have to watch it on tape and say, don't do it the next game.
So the reason why I find this to be interesting is because early on in the Jim Montgomery experience, we saw the Blues score 5-3-2, 4-4-2, 3-3. You saw the goal scoring there, right? But you also saw on the other side of things, they were giving up pretty consistently about 3 goals per game. Mm-hmm. And so it became a question of okay, is this going to be the way that they've got to win? They've got to win shootouts, more or less. Not literally going into a shootout, but they've got to win these high-scoring affairs.
Grant, I would prefer no shootouts.
For sure, especially in a game like last night where we're getting ready to go into Christmas Eve. I get it. I think we're starting to see more of what they actually want to be under Jim Montgomery, which is hey, let's win games 3-2, 3-1. Let's consistently keep the goal suppression down. We'll take our opportunities going the other way on the rush. We're more of a transition style offense. Yes, we're going to have that sustained offensive zone time. That's important to them because it keeps the puck from being in your own end. But we really are preventing the odd man rushes. We're going to be stingy in front of our own net. And that's going to be the way that we want to win under Jim Montgomery. They finally had an opportunity to actually implement that on the ice with a practice yesterday. Yeah. And then you see the results last night during the game. Do you guys think that is a fair read on what they're trying to get to as a team? Because I think it's really important in hockey, especially when you're playing so many freaking games, to be able to lean back on who you are, how you expect to win night to night. We see that especially with a team like Florida. You see it with Carolina. They have a very clear identity of who they are, how they are going to win night to night. Are we starting to see that develop a bit, even if it hasn't necessarily been with great success lately under Jim Montgomery?
I think so. I mean, Jim Montgomery uses the words habits and details all the time, and that's what they're trying to accomplish. They're trying to have that safety net to where when the offense isn't coming, what do? Well, you fall back onto your defensive plays so you don't allow anything from the other side. Because you know what happens when you're playing really stingy defense? The other team makes a mistake to try and get offense, and then next thing you know, you get an odd man rush the other way. Some of the issues that the Blues had, at least in my opinion, versus Dallas, Florida, New Jersey, and Tampa, they just didn't convert on their opportunities. They had 2 or 3 scoring chances. Last night they converted. But go back to those initial games that you were talking about. 2 goals against the Rangers, shutout against the Devils, 2 goals against the Flyers, 1 goal against the Winnipeg Jets. It's really once you got into that game, day off, where you started to see those 2-3 goals, the sloppier play start to kick in. So we're going to get into this a little bit later, but I think what the Blues just went through is some of their toughest stretch of hockey, and now what they can do is they know that they've got this stingier defensive play to fall back on. Their offense will come. They know the goal scoring will happen, but you got to play the right way on the other side so that you don't put yourself in a bad position to chase in hockey games.
Well, and over time, too, I think you're seeing under Jim Montgomery, you mentioned the odd man rushes being one thing to crack down on. Last time I was at Enterprise Center was for that Flyers game. I think I saw the most breakaways in a game I've ever seen in my life. Like, it was ugly. Like, defensively, there were so many odd man rushes for Philly. You're not seeing as many anymore. That's definitely getting cracked down. And another thing that I brought up during post game of that Flyers game, the team just felt so disconnected. Like, they couldn't even complete a pass. Like, completing a pass was challenging for them. One thing that Dylan Holloway said last night after the game, during his post game press conference was, he felt the team was really connected last night, which is, to me, a big deal because when this team is struggling, that's what it looks like. Like, they can't complete passes. It's just turnover after turnover because there's no clean passing.
Yep.
And last night we saw the passing was clean. They were very connected. Dylan Holloway said it. And to me, that's a big deal.
I think they just look like they have more pros out there right now. Mm-hmm. I know that sounds strange to say. They're all professional hockey players, technically, but I think Cam Fowler puts everything down a peg.
Makes things calm down.
Yes. I think that is really important. You see guys starting to fit their roles. They make sense in the roles that they're asked to play right now. And I think it took a while. And this is the case for anything, right? You see this in a bullpen over the course of a major league season. You come in and it's like you set something down and spiders just crawl out everywhere. They just go crazy. That's kind of how a bullpen feels at times where you're like, I don't know if this is the exact role that this guy's going to be in, but we'll try it out. And when you don't have a closer, sometimes you can see like it gets a little scatterbrained because you're trying to work from the back forward and you have to start with like the sixth inning and you get back to this guy will close for us today. Yeah. When you put that closer in place, all right, now we could start to work on our eighth inning and so on and so forth. I think that's where the Blues are at right now. They needed to figure out that top line. Yeah. And it took them a long time to get there, but I think they've kind of settled things down on that top line. Top pair defensively, same thing. They didn't really have it figured out early on in the season, and it took a while. But now I think Cam Fowler's kind of figured things out there. And now you can start to put things in place below them. And then it becomes about chemistry, switching out that third guy on individual lines, as they did last night. They're starting to get to a place where I think they just feel more comfortable as a team. It hasn't always shown up with some of the results lately, but I think we're starting to see them kind of figure out who they are. What that means results-wise at the end of the season, we'll see. But they're starting to look a little better, in my opinion.
Wow. And it's amazing how all of this could have just kind of been filtered into Pavel Buchnevich at the wing. Because I do think that settled everything down. Braden Shen is playing. I know people are upset because he hasn't scored an even strength goal since like the second game of the season, but he had a primary assist once again last night. Like, it was a really good play. So that settles things down.
Better.
He looks better. And you know why he looks better? Because he's got competent wingers that can go in and score, playing with Jordan Kyrou and a Dylan Holloway. But Pavel Buchnevich playing with Robert Thomas, you know what you're not doing? You're not searching for two wingers to play with your best centerman. You're searching for one guy that you can put in and out and let the other two guys do the work.
Blues off tonight, get a win last night, 4-0 on the road, finish out what's been a really rigorous schedule. Even as somebody that thinks that sometimes there's a little too much that's made of the schedule, this has been crazy for the Blues over the last few weeks. They are off over the next few days for the Christmas break. They get back into action on Friday against the Nashville Predators, a game that you'll, of course, hear right here in your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. We'll continue breaking the Blues down all day long. We've got Jeremy Rutherford, Blues insider for The Athletic, joining us at 11:30. Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie, at 1:15. Want to hear from you guys. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You can always check us out on YouTube as well, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. That is where the graveyard chat is off and running on a Christmas Eve. Thanks to all of you that are checking us out today. I know for many of you, you're at work. Sometimes tough spot to be in, especially during the holiday season. We're going to be here with you guys for the rest of the show today until 2 o'clock. So thanks for tagging along with us. Coming up next, there was an NFL game last night. It was technically played. It was the first shutout of the season. It took place at the hands of the Green Bay Packers. Are they now, despite their standing in the NFC, are they the team to beat in the NFC? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Are they a real Super Bowl contender from that spot?
Yeah, they are. Overall for the season, they're 7th in defensive efficiency, but they're 1st on third down opponent conversions. And to me, it goes back to rush the passer. They can with Rashawn Gary and a host of others. Jordan Love, we've talked about their weapons, but to me, the complementary piece about this defense makes them a legit Super Bowl contender.
That is Mike Tannenbaum, former NFL general manager, on Get Up earlier today, talking about the Green Bay Packers as a legit Super Bowl contender after they shut out the New Orleans Saints last night. Alex, I couldn't believe this stat. Apparently, that's the first shutout of the season in the NFL. That
is
feels
wild.
Insane that it took 16 weeks to get here. Alas, here we are. But they get a shutout last night. Saints are in such a bad place, dude. That is a practice squad roster in every sense.
They showed their injured list, and it looks like a starting 11.
It's brutal.
It's awful.
I mean, you look at what they had last night. So Spencer Rattler at quarterback, Kendre Miller, Jordan Mims, and Jamal Williams were the guys that ran the ball for them. They were throwing to Dante Pettis, Kevin Austin Jr., Cedric Wilson Jr., and Foster Moreau. Those were their top targets offensively.
And what's wild about it is they're probably going to get like a 10th or 12th overall pick because they were too good in the first half of the season.
So it's not a surprise necessarily that the Packers shut them out last night. The Packers have a solid defense, and the Saints were in a really tough spot. That was to be expected. So this isn't so much about that specific game, Alex, as it is the Packers continuing to do the thing where they just are awesome. When they have not played the Detroit Lions this year, they are now 11-2. They have taken care of business against everybody other than the team that most people believe to be the best in all of football right now, or at least up there in that tier. So the question that was asked on Get Up, I want to ask you. Are the Packers a legitimate Super Bowl contender? And given the injuries for the Detroit Lions, given the unknown with the Philadelphia Eagles, given the lack of a superstar quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, would you put them as the team to beat, in fact, in the NFC?
I think you have to. My only part that I'm skeptical about with Packers versus Lions is, yes, Lions don't have a defense right now, but can the Packers play a shootout style football game like the Lions can? And maybe the Packers can get a stop and the Lions can't. But from what I've seen with that dynamic offense, I could see that team being able to put up 40-plus points in a playoff game. Can the Packers do that? That I don't know, because I haven't seen that. But I have seen that Green Bay Packers team find a way to eliminate some dynamic players. I mean, look at the schedule that they've gone through. I know it was just the Saints, but prior to that, you hold the Seahawks to 13 points.
I thought that was one of their most impressive wins of the season.
You hold the Dolphins to 17 points. The 49ers, I know, are kind of bad, 10 points. It's like, it's hard for me not to look at the Green Bay Packers and say they have to be the team to beat, because, one, they've got all the momentum going forward, and I know that's wild to say considering the Vikings have an 8-game win streak. Still don't trust Sam Darnold, but when you've got Jordan Love, when you've got Josh Jacobs playing the way that he is, and for how decent that defense has played, I don't know, with the exception of the Lions offense, I don't see another team in the NFC that's going to be able to find a way to stop that offense with Jacobs and Jordan Love.
I just think they're the most balanced, and I trust them. I trust their coaching. I think Matt LaFleur is a top 5 coach in the NFL right now at a minimum. What he did earlier this year when they had to go to Malik Willis was super impressive to me. And they can win in multiple different ways. Like, if you need them to throw the ball, if you go up against a defense that's really good against the run, the Lions at times have been really good against the run this year. Mm-hmm. Okay, shut down Josh Jacobs. Cool, that's what you're going to sell out for. Now I've got Jordan Love going out there and creating to like 7 different weapons, and you never know who's going to show up in any given game. It's infuriating as somebody that plays fantasy football on a week-to-week basis. One week, Jaden Reed can go off. In the next week, he has literally 0 targets in a game. Yeah. Tucker Kraft has emerged as a big-time threat for them at the tight end position. Romeo Doubs, Wicks. I know yesterday there was a bit of an injury concern with Christian Watson. We'll see what happens there. But Watson is that big play threat for them. They've got a lot of dudes. And it kind of is starting to remind me of the Chiefs, not last year, but 2 seasons ago, where they get rid of Tyreek Hill, and now you've got MVS, and you've got Juju, and you've got just all of these weapons that on any given day could go out there, and they could be the one that shows up. And that offense was just efficient, and it carried them through the postseason. I think the Packers might be the team that can do that this year. I think they're the one that I'd be willing to bet on. The problem is, man, it is going to be a really difficult road for them to be able to get there. because in the NFC right now, it's tough to envision a scenario where they're not the 6th seed. They're pretty much locked into that unless they drop down even further and end up as the 7th seed. So you're going to have to go on the road in every game. You're going to have to play 3 games to get to the Super Bowl. That's my only hesitation.
Yeah.
If they were locked into like the 1 or the 2, I would feel great about the Packers. I think they're the best team right now. It's the path that makes me nervous about them.
The good news for that path, though, BK, is they're going to be taking on a lot of teams that have question marks. And like that could benefit the Packers because assuming the Lions lock up that top spot, you're probably taking on what, an Eagles team in the first round?
It depends. So if they're the 6th seed, they're probably taking on the Rams. And I think that's the best case scenario.
And I would give the Packers the edge on that one.
I do too. They're also going to be like in a dome where I think their offense plays pretty well in that scenario.
And the Rams haven't been that great on home field this season.
Yeah, I would love that. If they can get into that 6th seed, they just have to stave off the Commanders. So they can stay 6th seed. You're pretty much locked in there, and then you get the Rams or the NFC West champion if that ends up being the Seahawks. I think it's going to be the Rams. That's best case scenario. So you get them in the first round, and then in the second round, you're very likely to take on the Detroit Lions. And then it just becomes a question of, do you trust them?
And that's a vulnerable team, though.
Spot?
It's a vulnerable team, but like I said, my only hesitancy with that is can you play a shootout style of football game?
I think they can. I like, this. I am bigger on Jordan Love than you are.
Yeah.
I think Jordan Love, what I saw from him last year in the postseason, opened my eyes. It reminded me a little bit, and it's obviously different, but it reminded me of like Philip Broberg in the postseason showed you stuff.
Yeah.
And when you can do that on that kind of a stage, it makes me believe you can translate that again. You can do that in the biggest possible spots. Then I don't have to worry about what you're going to do in the regular season. And in some ways, that's the Jordan Bennington corollary, right? Like, Love has not been great this year. He's been good, but he hasn't been great. I just am of the opinion that he's going to be able to raise his game to the next level once we get to the postseason and the light shines brighter on him once again.
Yeah. Well, and if we see, you're right. Like, he did it. It's the same team. I think I saw like 51 of the 53 rostered players were on the team last year in the playoffs. So you've got the same team with all of those battle scars from what they did last year. How do you perform, though, when the Lions score a touchdown with 2 minutes remaining? Like, that's going to be the big thing, because that's the one thing, despite the defense being injured for Detroit, it's just so hard for me to look at them and say, like, yeah, but their offense is going to fall apart. Because their offense has been healthy.
Their offense has been good.
It's gonna come down to, can the opponent get a stop? And Green Bay's defense picking up that first shutout last night. Again, I understand it's against the Saints, but you go back through. They found a way to do it against the Seahawks on the road. They find a way to do it against the Dolphins at home. Frankly, I think that's going to be your best matchup in the NFC playoff bracket, is going to be a Packers-Lions whenever they meet.
So that was last night's game. You do have a couple of games that are going to be played tomorrow. We'll have these for you, by the way, right here on 101 ESPN. Chiefs versus Steelers. Pregame begins tomorrow at 11 o'clock. And then the Texans versus the Ravens. Christmas Day football this year. Kickoff for that one at 3:30. So Chiefs versus Steelers, and then Texans versus the Ravens. Those are the two Christmas Day games this year. Both are going to be played on Netflix. If you want to watch football this week, Alex, you need Netflix. You need Prime.
Yeah.
We're going to have some NFL Network games on Saturday. We've got Wednesday games, Thursday games, Saturday games, Sunday games, and a Monday game this week as well. So good luck trying to watch all of this football with your significant
Good thing
other.
we took off the rest of the week.
That's right.
And don't have to worry about recapping all those.
So I find both of these games on Christmas Day to be really interesting for two teams specifically, and it's the two contenders, I believe, in the games. I know people get mad at me. I still don't view the Steelers as a legitimate contender. I think they're a really good story. I've been highly impressed by what they've done. I just don't think they're a Super Bowl contender. Same thing for the Texans. Good team, love the quarterback. They're not there. It's been a disappointing season, in my opinion. Let's start with Chiefs Steelers. This is the exact kind of team in the Steelers that I would expect to give the Chiefs troubles. They have great edge rushers, and the Chiefs don't have a tackle. Forget a tackle right now. They, on offense, the Steelers, just want to throw the ball deep on these YOLO balls. And that is the exact thing that Joe Burrow does that gives the Chiefs troubles. And the reason is because Steve Spagnuolo's entire defensive premise is, we're going to make you throw those 50-50 balls. That's what we believe in. We're taking away the middle of the field. We're going to make the quarterback just throw it up for grabs, and hopefully those don't come down on your side more often than not, right? Well, for the Steelers, that's exactly the way that they want to play. For Joe Burrow, he wants to throw the ball up and give his guys opportunities to win, and they have the kinds of receivers that can win in those situations. So I want to see what the Chiefs look like on the road against a team in the Steelers that wants to play in ways that make the Chiefs have some difficult issues, and the Chiefs desperately need to win this game. Because if they win it, they can take the next 3 weeks off, and they just rest up to get ready for a divisional round game and then the AFC Championship game, and then boom, 2 more wins, you're in the Super Bowl. If you lose, you now have to play next week again on the road against the Denver Broncos in a game that you desperately would like to rest your starters in. Mahomes playing on this bum ankle for the second time in the last 4 days. This is a huge game for the Chiefs. I'm fascinated to see if they're able to come out on top.
Yeah, I mean, I originally said, like, I have, like, zero interest in this, and I was mostly thinking of this is going to be a very low-scoring, boring game because the Steelers are going to play the defense that you'd expect. They're going to have that YOLO ball. I expect the Chiefs to be ready for that with Spagnuolo, so I think you're going to see kind of similar to what the Steelers-Ravens were the first time around, where it was basically just a field goal game. But I would imagine every single person that hates the Chiefs is rooting for the opposite of what you just said.
100%.
Because what the Chiefs don't need is rest. Because I know Chris Jones is questionable for this one as well. Like, you don't need these guys rested to go for the second round of the playoffs because that's how you get into the danger zone. I think the Steelers can beat the Chiefs in this one. And frankly, I think that's going to...
them?
I would, yeah. And I think that's going to present a lot of questions of, are the Steelers a contender? I know you're out on them. I think they're
not on the road.
I think their defense gives them an opportunity to stay in football games.
But that's why you were mentioning how Kansas City, this is like a desperation game for them. I'd say it's even much more of a desperation game for Pittsburgh.
Sure.
The fact that they're tied with the Ravens now after that loss this week. Steelers are coming off back-to-back losses against 2 good teams on the road, coming back home. Like, that doesn't set up well for the Chiefs, the fact that the Steelers are probably more desperate for them for this game coming into this one.
Man, I thought there was a chance that coming into this one, it was going to mean very little for either team, and then suddenly it means everything for both teams. The other game tomorrow is Ravens versus Texans. This one doesn't, I believe, have quite as much meaning other than this. The Ravens have the potential to need to go on the road throughout the postseason, right? Like, they might not even win their own division. It's possible if the Steelers win tomorrow, like, Steelers might win the division still over the Baltimore Ravens. I want to see them do it on the road. They've had some struggles when they have to go away from home. So on the road at Cleveland, lost earlier this year. On the road against the Cincinnati Bengals, had to go to overtime in order to win that one. On the road against the Chargers, won that one. It was close. They needed a lot to be able to get there. They found a way to win. Even a couple of weeks ago against the Giants, that game was really close until the Giants just self-imploded all over. I want to see what they look like. This is not like the most hostile environment going down to Houston, but I'm really curious to see if they're able to get this thing done on the road, because that's what they're going to have to do once they get into the postseason. Lamar Jackson, road game, postseason situation. This isn't cold weather, but it will be cold weather once we get into the postseason. That's the number one thing that I'm honing in on in that one.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Lamar, I'm in the minority on this one, but unfortunately for Lamar, whatever you do in this one, I'm still going to be very skeptical of you, because playoffs versus the 17th game of the season against a Texans that is just completely decimated doesn't tell me you can perform. You're right. The one thing Lamar Jackson cannot do is perform in the playoffs on the road, and that's the path that you're going to have to go through.
He's Alex. That's so close.
Unbelievable.
So close.
Have
That's
some
Grant
respect.
Francis.
It's Christmas Eve, man.
I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. T-Bone off today. He'll be back in next week with us. We are going to be out for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the rest of this week, but we have you up until 2 o'clock today. In 15 minutes, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for Ask Us Anything. But we will have our questions for Jeremy Rutherford when he joins us next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends at Classic Air Care. The weather continuing to get colder, which means you need to make sure your HVAC system is ready to go for you. And that's why you got to get with a company that is going to take care of your older HVAC system, and that is Classic Air Care. They've been making people comfortable since 1926, and you could tell how great they are with customer service and how the client relationship by their 4.8 rating up on Google reviews. They've got over 3,000 reviews talking about the great work that Classic Air Care provides, like this one from Denise. Contacted the company for a second opinion. They located the problem that the original company couldn't find. Sean took pictures, wrote a detailed report of his findings. This was exactly what we needed to not be railroaded by another company. So make sure you use the right people, the knowledgeable technicians and incredible customer service over at Classic Air Care. You were looking in the market for a new HVAC system. You want to get one before the end of the year. Financing options available for you at Classic Air Care. Plus, they can help you with those electric company rebates between now and the end of the year. Call them today. Tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. That's classicaircare.com.
Greg Francis here with a SportsCenter update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Nice win for the Blues last night. A shutout 4-0 victory over the Detroit Red Wings. Jordan Binnington picks up the shutout, making 19 saves in the game. And Dylan Holloway picked up his first hat trick of his career and the first hat trick of the season for the Blues, as he had 3 of the 4 goals last night in Detroit. Blues will be off for a few days with the holiday break. Come back on Friday as they welcome in the Nashville Predators for the first game against the Preds this season. It'll be a 6 o'clock pregame, 7 o'clock puck drop here on your home for the Blues, 101 ESPN. I'm Greg Francis. The SportsCenter update's been driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alex Ferrario and Grant Francis. I'm Brandon. Kylie speaking Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend and the Blues insider for The Athletic. He's Jeremy Rutherford, joining us as he does each and every Tuesday here on the show. JR, appreciate the time. Merry Christmas to you and the family, my friend. How you doing today?
Yeah, good. Merry Christmas to you guys, and hopefully you guys will get a chance to get home and see those cute families of yours. Alex, I texted him yesterday. I feel like he did a Jerry Lewis telethon. You guys are probably too young for Jerry Lewis.
No, we're familiar.
I'm waiting for Alex to say, let's go to the tote. Let's see what the tote numbers are. Right?
Let's see what the totals are right now. That's what it felt like. I told them on the fast lane, I said, I kind of have to do this because if I sit back in the office for 3 hours before pregame, I fall asleep, and then there's no waking back up. And then I do an energy drink at like 8 o'clock, and then I'm up till 2 o'clock in the morning. It's just a disaster, JR.
Well, I fall asleep listening to the pregame, so
that's not nice.
Well, you shouldn't listen to the television. You should listen to the radio next time for pregame.
Right. All right, JR, let's get into this. Last night, Blues win 4-0 on the road at Detroit. Really good game by Dylan Holloway, especially with a hat trick, first of his career. I do want to ask you a little bit about Dylan Holloway, JR. He's now on pace for 30 goals this season, 50 points, a plus 15. Is he emerging at this point as just an established top 6 winger in the NHL? Is it fair to say that?
Yeah, I think he is. And now, in 3 years, are we going to be looking back saying, hey, remember when we thought Dylan Holloway was a top 6 guy? Like, I think we have, some evidence here that he can be. And guys, last night, I didn't tweet the game, but at the end of the game, I just tweeted Dylan Holloway hat trick, Blues win. And as I hit that send button, knowing that you have some followers in Edmonton, you're just thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, for those guys, those fans up there who didn't see the game or anything like that, to see, that information come across the social media, it's just furthermore, they just have to be up in arms with the way that he's played since he's been let go by the Oilers. And he just fits in wherever, second line wing, third line center if he needs to be, right wing as well. And to me, like Jim Montgomery said a few weeks ago, he just wants to be a great hockey player. And, I go back to some things that Ken Hitchcock and other coaches have said along the way is they just drip hockey. Like that's Dylan Holloway. If you think about him, he just drips hockey. So he's getting better as a result of all this work that he's putting in.
Jerry, I know there's still a long road to go in terms of waiting for some of these prospects to develop for what the Blues are hoping for, but does it feel like this roster is starting to round into shape what Doug Armstrong and company kind of envisioned it looking like 3 years ago?
Yeah, I think so. And I know that everybody's tired of, me talking about it's a process and they're trying to win now and they're also trying to groom these prospects. But, you can talk about them looking good now and rounding into some sort of form that Doug Armstrong was hoping to see. But at the same time, in the same breath, you have to think 5 or 6 of these guys might not even be here in a year or two when this team, starts to make that next turn, bringing in these prospects. So, I think that it took a while to kind of understand exactly what Doug Armstrong was trying to do. There were times when I was like, okay, where are you going with this? But as you watch the team play with the Cam Fowler now, I like that move. I really did. I think just like you guys said a moment ago, it's settling down the defense. You can see this team playing well in the back end. But in 2 years, Theo Lindstein's going to be in that spot. So it's just not necessarily his spot, but a spot on this defense. And so it's going to look different in a couple of years, but they're accomplishing, I think, what Doug Armstrong wants to is to win games now, and hopefully that those young guys can come in and be the future.
Jeremy Rutherford, our guest for another few minutes here on 101 ESPN. JR, I feel like we don't talk about him a whole lot because we just kind of expect it at this point, but Robert Thomas is quietly having a really nice season. He's on pace this season for 59 points in 55 games. He'll probably end up playing more than that, but just based on how many games he missed earlier this year. JR, what are you seeing from Thomas's game this year that is different, if at all, from what we've seen from him previously?
Yeah, I think they're obviously with the injury and missing 12 games, there was a little break in the action with him. But I think before that, even though it was a little bit quiet, he's still what was it, like 8 points in those first 7 games or something like that. He was putting up some good points before he went out, and then he comes back. And again, this isn't like you're watching a Brett Hull where there's highlights and you're saying to yourself, how many goals did he have last night? It's that that type of player. We know that from watching Robert Thomas. But at the end of the night, he's going to have 2 or 3 points sometimes. And I think some of the plays are going to be highlight reel plays. I like the way that he's played. I think that had he started out the year with Buchnevich on that wing, we'd probably be talking about more points. And so I think that probably had an effect on his production and, how things looked with him. But I think all in all, he's played really well.
JR, as a follow-up on that Thomas line of thinking, you had a really good piece that posted over on The Athletic about Robert Thomas, his upbringing, where he comes from, and how he became the face of the franchise at this point. For people that have not read it yet, and I suggest they do, it's over at The Athletic, well worth the price of admission. What did you learn about Robert Thomas that maybe surprised you or that you didn't know previously about him by spending some time with his family and learning a little bit about his upbringing?
Yeah, just a little bit of background first is, I went to Toronto last year when the Blues played in Toronto. That wasn't this year's trip to Toronto. So it's been over a year since I made this visit to his folks' house when the Blues are playing the Maple Leafs. And they were nice enough to let me come to the house and visit for a few hours and just hear stories about Robert growing up. And, I don't want to overdo this because I think there's a lot of professional athletes, all sports, who weren't necessarily at 8, 10, 12 years old. You didn't know they were going to make the NFL or NHL or MLB. So these kinds of stories happen. But as you sat there in Robert Thomas's kitchen and listened to his mom and dad talk about him growing up, like this is a kid who, he played minor hockey, wasn't always on the best teams, wasn't always the best player, but he just continued to work at it. And I'm going to bring in one of our colleagues here at Media in St. Louis, Frank Cusimano. Watching him growing up, he was an elite that I say growing up, but he always said, what makes the guy tick? And a lot of times I go into my stories thinking, what makes this guy tick? How did Robert Thomas get to St. Louis? How did he become the player that we're talking about a couple minutes ago? And as I listened to his parents tell the stories, that he would just go out on the ice and the neighbors were looking out at 10:30 at night and it's Robert making the noise, hitting the puck off the boards. And I talked to Robert Thomas about skating on that backyard rink, and he said, look, you couldn't throw a saucer pass, which is a pass in the air, because if it hits a guy, he doesn't have shin pads on, it's going to hurt. So we had to put him through people's feet to get him to the other side of the rink and get the pass on the mark. And what are we looking at right now in a 25-year-old Robert Thomas? He's throwing passes through guys' feet to get over Jordan Kyrou and score the goal. So, can you really link the backyard rink to Enterprise Center and how he's connected on some of these elite level passes? Probably not. There's a lot of talent, everything involved. But I think when you talk about what made a guy get to this level and you hear it straight from the parent's mouth, it was just a fun story to write. And there's a lot of other detail in there.
I know it's tough, JR, and projecting into the future, but do you think he's the next captain for the Blues?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, let me kind of set that up a little better than jump into the conclusion is, I think he's a guy who was in the running with a Braden Shen. A lot of people, in terms of the outside, the fans, the media, some people thought that, hey, maybe Robert Thomas can be that guy. I think maybe it was just a touch too early for him. I think people really felt that Braden Shen, even when Ryan O'Reilly was the captain, Shen really had a pulse of the team and did a lot of leading in the background. There's some fans out there, I've heard from him in the last year or two since Shen got to see, that say, hey, listen, where's this leader that you're talking about? Hey, it's a hard thing to do to lead a team through a retool. You need 3, 4, 5 guys behind the scene. So I personally think that Shen's done as good of a job as you could expect. Now, that said, is he going to be around in 2, 3, 4 years? Likely not. And I think that Robert Thomas is a guy who has the respect of a lot of people in this organization and on this team, but he could definitely wear the C in the future.
All right, JR, get out of here. You did your duty. We appreciate it. As always, it is Christmas Eve. Go hang out with the family, man. Enjoy yourself. I would imagine you're going to be eating some good food over the next couple of days. So we appreciate the time as always, my friend. Merry Christmas to you and yours. We'll talk with you again next week.
Yeah, you guys too. Anytime I'll jump on here, and you have to. I thought Alex was going to kill me on the story, saying he fell asleep reading the story. Come on, that was your chance, Alex.
Well, I kind of fell asleep during this interview, but you woke me back up at the end, JR, so I appreciate it.
All right, thanks, guys.
Take it easy. Jeremy Rutherford joining us as he does each and every Tuesday. Appreciate the time as always. Again, really good piece. If you haven't checked it out yet, check it out over on The Athletic. It's about Robert Thomas, basically. It's more or less the origin story of Robert Thomas. Like if you're watching a Marvel movie, you see the origins. That's pretty much what this is, where he comes from, how he became the player that he is. I love stuff like this. Not to connect it back to the Chiefs, but like when you watch Patrick Mahomes play football, he at times looks like a shortstop playing the quarterback position. It's because of his baseball background, right? You see the same thing for a guy like Kyler Murray. Like some of the off-platform throws that these guys make, they're only able to do that because of the cross-sport training. So whether it's stuff like that or with Robert Thomas, the ice rink in the backyard that shrinks. I think
that was my favorite part of my story.
At one spot, it's 12 feet. At another spot, it goes down to 4 feet. And so you're like in these tight corners and you're always on your edges.
Where you can't saucer a pass because you don't want to break somebody's shins, which is why he's so elite at passing right now. I loved that part of the story.
When you think about it, it makes sense, right? Like there are some guys that are like, because of their upbringing, because of whatever the parameters are of the places where they play, like it changes the way that you have to play your respective sports. So I find that stuff to be super fun.
Bernie Federico, in JR's book that he wrote with Bernie talked about how his parents got him into figure skating, which is what made him such an elite skater at the NHL level. And it's like you're talking about figure skating for a guy who is a hockey Hall of Famer, but it all starts from there.
Back before it became like a super in vogue thing to do, Tony Gonzalez used to do yoga.
Yeah.
This is like 20 years ago. Like now, people do Pilates, they do yoga. Like that's just a part of your regimen for a lot of professional athletes now. But before that, Tony was doing this stuff just to become more pliable, to become a guy that's more flexible. And he said it really helped him in these tight spaces and stuff. So all these athletes always trying to find different ways to become more and more elite at their respective sports. All right, he's Alex. That's Grant Francis. I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, it sounds like there's at least a chance, I don't know how great of a chance, but a chance that Nolan Arenado is back with the Cardinals next year. What would that mean for the team? Is that the worst case scenario for them? We'll talk about that coming up in 15 minutes. Ask us anything. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Coming up next here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything, question, sports or otherwise. We'll get to those right now here on BK and Ferrario. Let's start out with this from the 314. Boys, Santa Claus here. I'll let you replace one person from the entire Cardinals organization. You can have anybody replace them that you want, but you can only replace one person within the organization. Who would it be?
Like alive? Like can't like bring somebody back from the dead?
Yeah.
Okay. Replace the DeWitts with Steve Cohen.
Interesting. Okay. You just got all the money in the world.
All the money. Now you're going to be able to bring in the talent that you need to win.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking, too. Just bring in someone that wants to endlessly spend, then you're just always going to be competitive.
Because if I bring in a player, because originally I was like, well, bring in Vlad Guerrero Jr., but it's not going to keep him. So what's the point of bringing that player in?
It's an interesting one. I would probably replace. This is not a shot against the player that I'm about to talk about, but you know what? No, I'm going to change it. I would replace Nolan Arenado with Bobby Wood Jr. And just I've got a 24-year-old superstar that's going to be plugged into the middle of my order. Our conversation about do the Cardinals have a star? It's over. And it's over for the next decade. He's locked in long term. He's making like $25 to $30 million a year over the course of his entire contract. He hit .330 last year, 30-plus home runs, played in a ballpark that plays similarly to yours, so you don't have to worry about if it translates or not. OPS of roughly 1,000, Gold Glove defender. You can have him and Mason Wynn as your defenders on the left side of the infield, similar, not to the same degree. Cardinals fans, relax. But you're doing like your version of Derek Jeter and A-Rod, kind of. Yeah, I think that could work pretty well. So that would be mine.
I'd be in on that.
I think that's an interesting task to do for the Blues, too. Because
I was just thinking that.
I don't think you're going to replace ownership. You're not going to replace. No. I'm not going to replace the GM. I'm not going to replace Jim Montgomery. So, you're down to the players now.
Got to go to your players.
Yeah.
I would go Cale McCarr. Cale McCarr replaces.
I think that's a good one.
Yeah.
And now I've got McCarr with Parayko.
Well, you'd have to trade McCarr for Parayko, right? Like one top defenseman for top defenseman.
You got to take
McCarr with Fowler.
Put one player in.
And I like Fowler, but I mean,
I'm not. Forget Fowler. I just take out Suter.
Yeah.
Take out Suter and just drop Fowler to the third pair.
I think I would get Tkachuk. I would get Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That would be your number one option.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I would take Nathan McKinnon. Or Draisaitl.
Yeah, Draisaitl's a beast right now. I mean, you can't go wrong with any of these. Like, all of these are like stud players, but I just think it would be so cool to see Tkachuk in a blue note.
I mean, it would be amazing.
Yeah.
It
would bring back a lot of, 90s and early 2000s memories of watching Big Walton St. Louis.
Can you imagine, though, if you had two centers with, Thomas and McKinnon or Thomas and Draisaitl?
You'd have what the Penguins had for the longest time when it was Crosby and Malkin.
Yeah.
It's like you just straight down the middle. It's like when the Blues used to have Pronger and McKinnis. You knew that you had the best centers on the ice, the best defensemen on the ice for at least half of that hockey game.
I guess that's the question. Would you rather have that number one left-handed defenseman or one of those legit top forwards that are available? Not available, but that you could have. In this scenario.
I mean, it's hard to say no to a Cale McCarr because he's freaking incredible. But, man, I mean, we are witnessing right now how difficult it is to find forwards that can be 40-plus goal scorers and 100-plus points. So I think I would do the forwards.
I kind of think I would do the defenseman.
I mean, I get it. I get it.
You bring in Cale McCarr that solves so many of your problems. Even on the power play,
points
too.
Defensively, you're really good.
I think I'd lean to Cale McCarr.
BK would do Chris Kreider.
To me, it's also harder to find a Cale McCarr. I can name multiple of these forwards we're talking about. Who's the other version of Cale McCarr that does it consistently? Because Quinn Hughes had a season or two like this, but then he's good.
Yeah.
It's not the same level as a Cale McCarr. Adam Fox had a couple of seasons like this, and he's really good. But the Rangers are now trying to offload his contract. So I think it's probably Cale McCarr for me, just because the replacement ability of a guy like that is nearly impossible. So. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. Alex, this one's for you.
Okay.
Besides the Blackhawks, is there an opponent that gets Alex more excited for pregame shows for the Blues than anybody else?
Oh, yeah.
Other than the Blackhawks.
This is easy. And I don't even know if the Blackhawks get me as excited anymore. They will when they're good again, but these last couple of years, it's kind of been like, Colorado's the easy one. I mean, every time the Blues play Colorado, it gets a little blood boiling. That one and the Predators. I think those are the two. I would say those two are still the rivals for the Blues.
It's funny because I was thinking the exact same two teams is Colorado and Nashville. Colorado because of the recent playoff bouts, and that's become, a big rivalry lately. And then Nashville because I feel like Nashville and the Blues have always been sort of at the same level at the same time, except for really this year when Nashville's taken such a step back. But even last year, I hosted pre and post for one of the games against Nashville, and that was probably my favorite game I've done, even though it was kind of a dud of a game.
They've just been a thorn in the side. It's a team that always provides the Blues fits, and Grant's right. It's always been kind of like Nashville's good, and then the Blues are good, and then Nashville's good. It's always kind of been toe-to-toe with that.
All right, last one here from the 314. What are your favorite foods that you like to eat during the Christmas holiday?
Oh, homemade lasagna. That's what we got tonight. We go homemade ravioli for one of the holidays between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then homemade lasagna. We're doing lasagna this year. And then salami from the hill, but that's always. Yeah.
Honestly, I think I get most excited for the desserts. My grandma makes a Texas sheet cake that is my all-time favorite dessert. I'd say that's probably what I get most. That's what I was most excited for Thanksgiving even is the dessert.
We do homemade ravioli for Christmas with my family.
Freaking awesome.
That's the number one thing I look forward to.
It's so good. I feel like that's better on Thanksgiving, though, because then I can, unbutton the pants, sit on the couch, and be out cold. Christmas, you got more responsibilities.
Do you guys, what is your filling that you do for the raviolis? We do cheese and sausage.
Yeah, I think we do ground sirloin with cheese. Yeah, we do we do basically Parmesan and provolone, and then we put it in there with ground sirloin.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to play a game of Bet It or Forget It. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get your scenarios in. We'll tell you if we are betting them or forgetting them here on BK and Ferrario. But coming up next, how problematic would it be for the Cardinals if Nolan Arenado was returning next season? We'll talk about that here on 101 ESPN. 943-999-6446 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. How do you not say McDavid? Because we're stupid. That's it. We're big dummies. In the last segment, somebody on the text line said, I'm Santa. You can replace one player on your team with any other player in the league, but you only get one replacement. Who you going with? We mentioned Leon Draisaitl. I mentioned Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar. And Alex was like, well, I'd still probably take Matthew Tkachuk. Totally fair. It's like, yeah, the reason why I went with, Nathan McKinnon over McDavid is the age. Like, yeah, but
McDavid's old as hell.
He's younger.
Oh, what?
Yeah, well, I'm just stupid.
I said what I said. No Connor McDavid. I want Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah, no. Looking back on it, I would like to replace. Yeah, I would amend my forward answer to that question. I would indeed go with McJesus. That would be my answer to that question.
A lot of sense.
We could totally be GMs.
We'd be really good at it.
I'm great at NHL GM. All right, man.
I feel like I would have that information in front of me if I was making the actual decision.
Somebody would have brought up McDavid like your assistant GM.
We would be in the room, and we'd have like that huge table, right? We'd be sitting at the head of the table, and somebody would say, BK, I hear where you're coming from here. You mentioned you'd like to go with Nathan McKinnon. You do realize he is worse and 3 years older than Connor McDavid,
what?
Right? I feel like somebody would probably say that in the room. All right.
BK would be like, shut up, I want to do it.
Nolan Arenado is hopefully on the way out this offseason. And I don't say that because I have like ill will towards Nolan Arenado, but it just doesn't make sense for either side for this marriage to continue. It hasn't worked the way that either side would have liked, and now it's time for them to go on their separate ways. The Cardinals tried to do that, and Nolan Arenado said no. That is his contractual right, and he didn't want to go to Houston, at least at this time. Derek Gould had an interesting update, Alex, on Nolan Arenado. This was from, I think, 2 days ago now on MLB Network. Here's what he had to say.
It's 100% guaranteed Nolan Arenado will be playing third base for another team on opening day.
I don't think it's that simple. I don't think it's locked that he's doing that. I don't, talk to both sides of this. I've talked to a lot of people who are in this, kind of around it and know of the talks. And, they cannot say for certain that there isn't a world where he returns and he's there in Jupiter, Florida as the starting third baseman. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be a bad situation. If anything, from a Cardinals perspective, or maybe from a Cardinal fans perspective, if that happens, look at it this way: this is a guy who 4 times has been given a chance to go elsewhere, and 4 times said, "I want to be a Cardinal," or that's the best situation for him. So both sides want to find a better spot for him, as I kind of outlined there. They both want a better spot for each other, and if they can find a mutually agreeable spot like that, then I think his plan for another team next year. But he can't say 100% that he's not a Cardinal.
Wow.
Man, first on Derek Gould's point there. Credit to Arenado if he wants to be here. Like that, it's the same thing that I said with the Krug situation.
Yep.
It's hard to be mad at a guy who falls in love with the city that we all love, right? Like it's hard.
And everybody wanted him when he was available via trade.
Totally. And now his family has made this their home. They're comfortable here. And so I don't blame him for being like, yeah, I don't want to go to that situation when I like where I'm at, and it's got to be better than this, not just similar, better than this for me to go somewhere else. So I get that. Let's set aside all of the personal feelings on this. Just the purely baseball, I'm in John Mozeliak's, I'm in Chaim Bloom's spot. What does this mean if he's back next year? It's a disaster, dude.
Yep.
It's the worst case scenario. The number one goal for the Cardinals, as stated by the organization, as stated by Ollie Marmol to Derek Gould 2 days ago in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, is for them to get answers on their young players. They have to have that this season. Otherwise, what is all of this for? What is the next calendar year all about? If not, to find out once and for all what you have in Nolan Gorman, what you have in Brendan Donovan, and in Lars Nootbaar, and in Ivan Herrera, and in Jordan Walker, and in all of these guys. It's Thomas Sajaci, who I know some are lower on than I am, but like he's still a guy that you potentially want to keep around for the foreseeable future. Alec Burleson, who I saw a story while I was out, Alex, that apparently the Mariners had called about his potential availability, and the Cardinals like, no. And then they were like, okay, well, we actually want Brendan Donovan. Is that a guy that you're interested in? They were like, no, definitely not willing to trade Brendan Donovan.
Back to this again.
So if they end up having to keep Nolan Arenado, I can't think of a worst case scenario for them. That's 500 at-bats at third base that are just clogged up by Arenado.
Mm-hmm.
And now you don't get to have Nolan Gorman move back to his natural position of third base. You don't get those other opportunities for Donovan and Sajacy at second base. You don't get those potential at-bats that are now clogged up because you've got Gorman sliding back over to the DH spot, which could have otherwise gone to Burleson or Ivan Herrera on certain days, which now means the outfield situation is a little bit more convoluted. Like, everything gets more difficult. Everything gets more congested. The at-bats are more difficult to come across if Arenado is here. And I don't know what you do if you're the Cardinals, because it's not an easy situation to handle, but they can't go into next season with Nolan Arenado on this roster, man. They have to find a resolution that is okay for both parties.
Yeah.
They have to come to that.
It delays everything that you have planned for at least another year, until maybe when you can trade Nolan Arenado again. But even in that sense, you're getting another year of him getting older, where the play's probably declining, and you've got a guy who's even more comfortable where he's at. So, like, this is kind of a crossroads moment for the Cardinals. And I asked you in the office, man, is there any scenario that you just buy this guy out and say, look, you got to go on your way? And I'm in the same line of thinking as you. The Cardinals aren't going to do that.
They can't. Nobody would. Nobody in baseball would do that.
But then you are going to be, for a lack of a better word, bleeped. Because now, I mean, T-Bone and I talked about this last week. The trickle-down effect is massive in terms of playing time. You might be forced into a position where you're playing Lars Nootbaar in center field, which Victor Scott's in the minor leagues at that point. Thomas Sajacy's probably in the minor leagues as well, because you're not going to have him up here as a bench bat, because if you're having Arenado, you're having Nolan Gorman at second base, you're having Brendan Donovan in one of the corner outfield spots so that you can get that bat in and find that playing time. The other question that I had is, do you consider just looking at Nolan Arenado and saying, fine, we'll have you as a DH, but now you're screwing over Alec Burleson in this spot. And if he's here, it's the defense. I'm like trying to pick different options of what this team can do.
There is no option. It's all bad.
Because you have Nolan Arenado, or you have Nolan Gorman that is needed to play third base for you, which is why it's at the point now where I think I'm looking at this as, do I have to attach something to Nolan Arenado to trade it so I can move this on? Do I have to eat more money in this situation? Because you cannot have Arenado on this team to start next year.
I think you just have to go to Arenado and say, listen, we tried to find something with Houston. We thought that would be a good spot for you. They're a contender. They've been to a World Series like half of the last decade. You said no. Cool. We need to know what your actual list is. I don't know if the Cardinals have that or not, but it sounds like they have ideas of some of the teams that he would potentially be interested in. I think they need to know at some point, probably after the holiday season, what are the 5, 7, 8, whatever the number is of teams that you would accept a trade to. And once you have that, now you can get down to brass tacks, and you could say, okay, we will go talk to these teams individually and find out what their interest level is. Whether it's, okay, what is your interest level at his current contract? Oh, none? Okay, cool. What is your interest level if we ate $15 million on the contract? Still none? Okay, cool. What is your interest level if we added a sweetener? We gave you a prospect to go along with $15 million on the contract. Still none? Okay, then we can't get anything done here. And you move on to the next team, and the next team, and the next team, and you have to find a taker. That's where we're at. I'm of the opinion that you cannot go into next season with Nolan Arenado on this team. Not because of anything attitude-wise, not because he's going to be a problem or anything like that, but because the stated goal for the 2025 season is for this team to find answers on players that are young for the first time in the last decade. It is time to find those answers. And if you have Nolan Arenado on this team, I do not believe that is possible. I do not think that you can get the answers that are necessary, because over the past 4 seasons in a Cardinals uniform, he has at least 600 plate appearances every single season. Those are 600 plate appearances that should otherwise be going to Brendan Donovan and to Nolan Gorman and to Thomas Sajacy and to Alec Burleson and Lars Nootbaar, all of these guys that fit into that mix of third base, second base, first base, DH, etc. And if you're not going to be able to get the answers on that team, you're not getting the one value that comes out of a reset season like this.
Then if that's the case, and you and I are on the same wavelength in terms of you have to move him, you're going to have to do something you get uncomfortable with.
Potentially. We'll see. Well, I'm not there just yet, because they came to an agreement.
Yeah.
Like, they found a team that was willing to take Nolan Arenado, and you didn't really have to do much to make that happen. And they were apparently giving something back in return. We don't know what it was. We haven't gotten the return.
But the hard part is, it sounds like, at least from what John Denton told us last week, like, Arenado's preference still is the Dodgers. Like, he is holding out hope that the Dodgers do something.
They're not going to be interested.
But if Arenado is going to say, I want to wait and see what the Dodgers are willing to do, if you wait too long, the other teams that could be interested do what the Houston Astros did and pivot. And if everybody's pivoting, they're not going to come back to the Arenado table and say, hey, you still want to come here.
We've got some time, though, before we get there.
Man,
it's December. There's still...
I'd be worried once you get past the new year and you get closer to that winter warm-up, teams are getting closer and closer to what their roster looks like. And do they pivot back to a guy who's $20 million on their books for this year?
Maybe, but, Boston hasn't done anything. There are just teams like Alex Bregman is still available in free agency. The free agency market got off to this hot start, and then it just stopped.
Yeah.
We've seen some of the starters go off the market now, and Jock Peterson signs. You're seeing a couple of things that are happening, but it feels like over the past couple of weeks, people have turned their attention to the trade market instead of the free agency market because of where the prices are at. So I actually think the Cardinals are in a pretty good spot in that regard. Pete Alonso has not signed anywhere just yet. Alex Bregman still out there on the free market. So until that changes, I'm not all the way on the spot of they're stuck with Nolan Arenado. This was a bad week for the Cardinals in that regard, but I'm not all the way there just yet. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 618. BK, what you just described is exactly how the Cardinals ended up getting Arenado for what they gave up. How would you react to a return like Austin Gomber? I'm fine with that.
Oh, I don't care what the return is. It could be nothing.
The point of this trade is not for the Cardinals to get a significant return for Nolan Arenado. The point of this trade is what we talked about a couple of years ago with Vladimir Tarasenko, which was, hey, the value is not the return. The value is the cap space at that point in time. Now, they didn't end up trading him, so hopefully it doesn't go the same way with the Cardinals. But the point is you need the 600 plate appearances. You need to find out once and for all what these young players are. And if you can't get that, you're stuck. Mm-hmm. And now you're just running it back once again next year, and you end up leaving the season. You're like, okay, well, no clue what Thomas Ajacey is. Still not entirely sure what Ivan Herrera is. We think we have a little better read on Alec Burleson, but you're not going to know for sure. And that's just a lost season is what it would ultimately be considered. All right, coming up next, time for Bet It or Forget It here on BK and Ferrario.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN. Vegas sets them up, and we're here to make the call. It's BK and Ferrario's Bet It or Forget It on 101 ESPN.
Presented by Circus Sports Illinois. Sports betting the way it should be.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. You give us a scenario, we will tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on 101 ESPN. Alex, Bet It or Forget It, the best gift that you can receive on Christmas is a type of experience. Tickets to something, a spa service, whatever. The best kind of gift that you can get on Christmas is an experience that you are gifted.
I would probably say bet it, because I'm at the point, Carrie and I were talking about this on the Fast Lane yesterday. I'm at the point now where, like, socks get me excited. Like,
they get you excited?
Yeah.
Like excited, or they make you like, oh, I got socks.
No, that was me about 10 years ago. But now I'm like, oh, hell yeah, I needed socks. All of mine have holes in it. Or I need, like, undershirts. So an experience is so much better than that. I'm at the point, too, where it's like, if I need something, I'll go buy it. Like, I told my parents, it's like, stop buying us stuff. Like, we're fine.
I just don't need stuff at our house anymore.
My house is already a disaster. I don't need more stuff coming in. Like, if I need a speaker for the television, I'll go buy it. If I need a pan, I'll go buy it. So, yeah, either give me tickets or give me something that I really need, like undershirts.
Yeah, I'll bet that. I think an experience overall. Plus, it's like a memory you'll always have. Usually
tied to that person that gifted it to you.
Right. Usually things you're going to use it for a short amount of time, or it's going to get old, or whatever it may be. So I'll bet that.
Would you rather have an experience, money, or gift card?
Money.
Oh, probably money.
Give me money.
Out of those three.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, if you want to give me a gift, pay off some debt. Like, I got medical bills. I'll send you the bill. You pay that off, and like
Venmo request.
Merry Christmas to me, right? Just direct any money towards either Mercy or St. Jude's or something like that. Just direct it directly there, and then Merry Christmas to me.
I think I would still go with the experience. And the reason why is just because, like, that money will probably go towards debt for me. Man, that's going to be there. Like, it ain't going anywhere. And so instead of me potentially going towards the debt or whatever, I would rather have it towards, going to a Mizzou basketball game or getting good concert tickets, whatever it might be. I think I am in the experience category at this point.
All right, I got another one for you guys. Bet it or forget it. By this time, you are sick of Christmas music.
Oh, I've never not been sick of Christmas music.
I know. Grant just hates Christmas.
Really?
Oh, I hate Christmas music.
I'm forgetting it. I like Christmas music. I don't need to listen to it in, like, October, but once we get past Thanksgiving, between then and now, I'm fine with it.
It's weird because, like, beginning, like, the end of Thanksgiving, I'm like that window where I want to listen to it all the time. And about, like, a week ago, I'm sick of it because it's all I listen to.
Sure.
And then, like, now and tomorrow, I'm going to listen to it because then, like, the 26th, it's just gone. And it's like, oh, I didn't get to enjoy it very much.
Oh, don't worry. It's still there.
It's weird how it works, man.
For the record, I don't hate Christmas.
Yeah, you do.
I've never enjoyed listening to a Christmas song.
Okay.
It's just like...
Hey, man, different strokes. I get it. What do you got for us today?
All right, well, I'm not going with the Christmas one.
Here comes the blues. Better to forget it.
I'll give you, like, plus 400 on this, okay? Because I don't think it's likely.
He's got the odds on it, too. I like it.
I've been thinking about this. Bet it or forget it, Dylan Holloway finishes the season with the most goals on the team. He's one behind Jordan Kyrie for the team lead.
Plus 400 is pretty good odds.
Yeah, like,
I might take it with the 4-1.
Because it's not likely, but it's good value.
I might take this. I mean, if he's going to be getting top 6 minutes.
Bet it or forget it. This is your Blues trifecta for top 3. Kyrie, Holloway, Booch. That's your trifecta. Top 3 players on the team in goals this year.
I'll forget that one because I think Neighbor scores more than Booch.
Do you? Okay.
Goals you're going off of? Points, I would say. Points, I would say it'd be Booch, Thomas, Kyrie. But goals, I would say it'll be. I think I might put Holloway up there, and here's why. Because in a late game scenario with the goaltender pulled, Holloway might be on. Goaltender pulled, I should say, when the team is leading by a goal, like last night. Holloway's going to be on the ice over Jordan Kyrie. and there's some empty net goals there. I think I might do Holloway, Kyrou, and then I'd do Neighbors. So I'd forget yours, and I'd bet yours.
So far this season, Jordan Kyrou has almost played like 90 more minutes than Dylan Holloway. And he's only, Holloway's within one of Kyrou right now. And he's probably going to, if he keeps playing like he has been, he'll keep getting elevated minutes. So it's interesting. Yep. I don't think it's going to happen, but
and sooner or later they're going to put Holloway on that power play.
Yeah.
That one timer, you have to think Jim Montgomery's thinking like, ooh, maybe do we try this?
I like that.
I put a lot of thought into it.
That would be awesome.
It'd be a good thing for the Blues if that's something they have to think about, and both are at 35 plus.
It'd be massive.
Be pretty impressive.
Because it takes the pressure off of a Snuggerud. Now Snuggerud could be like a second or third line winger. If Holloway's going to be this guy, you found a winger with Robert Thomas if that's who this guy is.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on 101 ESPN. Guys, bet it or forget it. We will see at least one of the 6 or 7 seeds in the postseason, in the AFC or NFC, make it to the divisional round. We will see a 6 or a 7 seed make it to the divisional round this year in the NFL playoffs.
I'm going to bet this because of what we talked about with the Green Bay Packers. I think the Green Bay Packers are going to be that team that might actually make it to a conference game. It's going to I'm really hoping that it lines up to where the Packers play like the Lions or the Eagles in a conference championship game.
That'd be cool.
But I think that would be, I don't think anybody from the AFC is going to do that. I think it's the NFC.
I could see it in the AFC too. And the scenario is Steelers win their division. They have either the same or a better record than the Ravens, end up winning that division. Chargers could beat them in the first round.
Beat the Steelers?
Yeah. Chargers go on the road, end up beating the Steelers.
That's going to be a low-scoring game.
For sure. I might bet this for both conferences this year. I think that the 3 and the 4 seeds are a little weaker than they have been in recent years. Because the Rams and the Falcons, I could see either of those teams losing. I could see both of those teams losing. Right now, the 5 seed would be the Vikings in the NFC playing against the Falcons. Who would you guys take in that game?
Oh, Vikings.
Vikings.
Yeah.
I would too. The 6 seed, Packers going up against the Rams. Would you take the Packers?
I'd take the Packers.
I'd probably take the Packers too.
Well. 7 seed Commanders against the Eagles. I mean, they literally just beat them this week.
I'm the odd one out here. I'd take the Commanders in that game.
I wouldn't take the Commanders, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Commanders won.
Totally. And then over on the AFC side of things, it would be Steelers versus Chargers, as I mentioned. Now, I would not take the Broncos to beat the Bills.
What?
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. But then you've got the Texans playing against the Ravens, Ravens being the 5 seed in that scenario.
Yeah.
So, I could see some of these wild card teams ending up in the divisional round this year.
Yep.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. Guys, bet it or forget it. The Bill DeWitt Jr. will end up signing a bigger-than-expected free agent for the Cardinals this offseason.
Oh, forget it.
Yeah, forget it.
There's no free agent signing.
Yeah.
Next season, maybe. Depends on how persuasive Chaim Bloom is, but no, not this one.
Especially in the first season of reinvesting in the minors.
Yeah.
I don't see
Can't get rid of Nolan Arenado. You think they're going to go out there and sign more money to a player? No way.
Somebody on the text line said, guys, if you could add one free agent that has not yet signed this year, understanding what the contract is likely to be for them, who would it be for the Cardinals? You get to unilaterally make the move and you force the signing, kind of the way that you did. Remember in Madden, you used to be able to force trades? You're basically doing that, but with a free agent. Who would you want the Cardinals to go out there and acquire?
It's got to be a pitcher.
I think so, too.
I don't know who. I guess in a perfect world, I think I would do what T-Bone mentioned and go sign Kyle Gibson and trade Eric Fetty away. I mean, I don't know if I really want any of these starting pitchers because it doesn't do the Cardinals any good.
I think I would do Jack. I think that would be my signing.
I
don't. Part of that, a big part of this, guys, is what this market is. It's just not very good, what's remaining.
Yeah, I'm the one that's out on Jack, which, I mean, totally understandable. But, I'm thinking more about what the plan is for this Cardinals team, and it's trying to sell assets. I'd be trying to sell Eric Fetty, and to do so, I'd bring in a Kyle Gibson.
Do you have anybody that you would want, Grant? Or are you just out on it in general? It's not a very good
I don't really follow the MLB offseason that much, especially with Blue season going on, so... there's not one guy that I'd really hone in on.
I did hear earlier today, I was listening to TMA, I thought Tim said something really interesting where he said, hey, I saw this article from Sports Illustrated that the Mets are apparently one of the teams that you should be watching for Alex Bregman. And he's like, I just don't get it. It's like, what are non-New York, LA, San Fran, what are these markets supposed to do at this point? It's like, yeah, you can still win the World Series because
anything can happen.
The postseason, anything can happen, but none of these markets believe that their teams, the way that things are trending, can win 95-plus games. So as a fan, what am I really paying attention to this 162 games of inventory for? It is a really...
I think that's why numbers are down in terms of viewership with baseball.
Yeah.
What's the point of watching?
They are locally. They're up in a lot of different markets.
Probably these big markets that are going out there and shelling out.
It's going to be an interesting spot for baseball over the next few years. The next CBA, they've got a potential battle on their hands. And I don't know what the players are going to want because the players, I don't think, are upset by this. The funny thing is, I think a lot of the time fans, their interests are more in line with the players. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case this time. It might be the rare scenario in which the fans' interests, strangely, are actually aligned with the owners. And when that happens, I'm really curious to see what happens with these players and how they end up negotiating because it could get pretty ugly, not just between the players and the owners, but now the fans, I think, are going to swing in one direction in a way that I'm not sure I've ever seen in these kinds of negotiations before. It's going to be a big offseason whenever that does end up taking place. I think it's like 2026, if I'm not mistaken, when the CBA comes up, but we'll talk about that more as we get there. All right, coming up next, the Blues made a trade when I was out of town, Alex. I did not see this one coming. They got Cam Fowler. He's an older defenseman that just is a very vanilla, stay-at-home guy. Like he's fine. He's fine in every sense of the word. He's been exactly what the doctor ordered for this team. We'll talk about what he's added for them and what it means next here on 101 ESPN.
Grant Francis here with a SportsCenter update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues pick up a shutout victory last night as Jordan Binnington made 19 saves as the Blues beat the Red Wings 4-0 in Detroit, backed behind Dylan Holloway's first hat trick of his career and first hat trick for the Blues this season. 3 of the 4 goals from Holloway, the other from Alexander Texier. Blues will be off for the next few days, back on Friday as they host the Nashville Predators for the first matchup between those two teams this season. Pregame will be at 6, puck drop at 7 here on your home for the Blues, 101 ESPN. I'm Grant Francis. The SportsCenter update's been brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
All right, so we got the news last week while I was out in Mexico City that the Blues had made a trade, and it surprised me at the time that it happened. Maybe it shouldn't have, but it did. Cam Fowler was coming to St. Louis. In return, they send some draft pick capital over the next couple of seasons, and they get a 33-year-old defenseman, Alex, that has spent the entirety of his career in Anaheim, nearly 1,000 games played in his career out in Anaheim. He's been playing, though, for a really bad team in recent seasons, and so it's one of those situations where it's like, okay, he puts up like 30 to 40 points every year.
30 to 40 goals would be awesome.
Yeah, 30, 40 goals would be amazing.
McCarr.
But he puts up points that remind me a little bit of like Justin Falk.
Yeah.
But his plus minus is like a negative 60 over the last 2 seasons.
Yep.
And you just don't know, okay, how much of this is Cam Fowler stinks versus, he's playing for this horrific hockey team. Like a truly horrible hockey club.
Yep.
And so he ends up accepting the trade here to St. Louis. He waives his no-trade clause, and that's your new defenseman. He's going to be playing top pair minutes with Colton Parayko, and you've got this guy that has some size, a little bit of puck mobility, kind of vanilla, just like a really solid overall defenseman is the hope for what he can bring to you here in St. Louis. There's risk, though, because he's under contract for the next couple of seasons. As I mentioned, he is 33 years old. He's been playing for a terrible club. You don't know how his game at this point in his career is going to translate to a team that hopes to contend in some capacity. Alex, how would you say it's gone thus far? We've now seen a few games of him here in a Blues uniform. What have you thought of the Cam Fowler experience?
I think it's been very successful, and frankly, it's a trade that I was kind of like you. I saw it and I'm like, man, what's going on here? Originally, I'm thinking like, okay, something must seriously be wrong with Nick Leddy. If they're going out there and bringing in a guy who's got another year of $4 million on contract, like they ate enough to be the same as Nick Leddy. So I was like, what's going on here? But then it's like, okay, I understand what they're trying to do because you can't keep playing Ryan Suter on your top pair. And what was happening to him was they would put Broberg with Parayko, but then Justin Falk's play would take a significant step backwards because Ryan Suter didn't just match that well. Yep. So your two options were you lose a second pair and get really bad in your second and third, or you have Ryan Suter playing 25 minutes a night, which is just not sustainable. So you had to go get somebody who was used to it. And again, when you look at back-to-back years, the last 2 years in Anaheim, he's a minus 59. That is not an ideal number to look at. But you also have to take into consideration the Anaheim Ducks, who went out and brought in essentially a drill sergeant to be their head coach because they are so bad defensively. And we know in St. Louis 2 years ago when Binnington was playing poorly, we looked at it and said, like, yeah, the defense isn't great, but the forwards are just as responsible, and sometimes the defensemen take the bulk of that. I look at Cam Fowler kind of like what Jay Bouwmeester was and when they brought him over. Now, Bouwmeester was younger, but Bouwmeester was viewed as kind of like, he's a good guy to have in there. Does he really move the needle? He's not going to put up points. So you don't know what he pans out to be. But what I've seen from Cam Fowler is the ability to just kill plays every time the offense tries to do something. And I think you're going to start to see the points pick up because he's getting power play time now. And this is a guy who runs a power play and has run the power play for a long time. I think in his career, he's got like 58 more points than Justin Falk.
Oh, wow.
So I think you've got a power play quarterback who is a left shot, which Pavel Buchnevich has said in the past, like left shot defensemen on the power play really help an offense thrive. But you're going to have a guy who is going to be sound in his own end. Is he going to light things up offensively? Is he going to be this like stingy defensive player? Probably not. But you know who he's going to be? He's going to be Carl Gunnarsson. He's going to be somebody that...
I like that comparison better than the J-Bo one.
Well, but what I meant by J-Bo was you're bringing in somebody who is expected to be a top pair defenseman, and he's probably not, but he's a really good top four defenseman to have. And that's what I think Cam Fowler is. He's going to play with Colton Parayko, but you are not going to notice him on the ice because he is very sound in his own end and just makes easy plays out of his zone.
You know who he is? Not the version of this player that we've seen recently.
Cale Makar.
He's Nick Leddy. He's tall Nick Leddy.
Yeah.
Nick Leddy came over, and at the time, it was like, okay, just don't make mistakes. Just get the puck out of your own end. He was on a really bad Detroit team at the time of that trade. And the rest of that season, he was exactly what the Blues needed for that top pair. They were lacking somebody that could just settle stuff down and get the puck out of your end, get it up the ice, get it to the forward, just make the easy plays consistently. They didn't have that prior to trading for and acquiring Nick Leddy. I thought that should have been the end point. And they should have just said, you know what, okay, great. We got exactly what we needed for the rest of the season. Yes, we paid a hefty price for it, but that's the going rate, and it is what it is. And move on their separate ways, keep David Perron. They decided to not go that way. We don't have to reassess history. But if you can get that version of Nick Leddy over the next couple of seasons out of Fowler, I think you feel pretty good about it.
Yeah.
And it's not going to leave you feeling the same way that you do about Broberg. You're not going to feel about this trade the way that you do about Holloway or anything like that. But sometimes you can just take little wins. These wins that are similar to like what the Cardinals had with John Lester and Jay Happ, or what they had with Jose Quintana, where it's like, yeah, you know, that was a really nice move. Didn't change or alter the trajectory of the organization, but it worked. Mm-hmm. Gave them what they needed at the time when they made the deal. And I think that's kind of what I'm hoping for Cam Fowler. You don't ask him to be something that he's not, but if he can be just a really solid top four defenseman that happens to be playing in the top pair for you because of what you have available, I think that could be good.
I'm not concerned about his age because I don't know if you remember when we talked to Carlo Koliakovo, but he basically said, like, some defensemen age like fine wine, and the older they get, the better they get, the more mature they are. This is a guy who's 3 games away from playing 1,000 in the National Hockey League. He's stayed healthy pretty much his entire time playing in the National Hockey League, and he's familiar with being a top pair guy when teams are good and when teams are bad. So
I'm not worried about it because he was only under contract for this year and next.
Yeah.
If he was under contract for 3 more seasons, then yes, I start to get worried about the age.
And that's the other thing, too. I think he's a perfect placeholder because, as Doug said in that press conference, they're not expecting a Lindstein or a Jiricek or any of these other defensemen that Colin Ralph, Lucas Fisher, they're not expecting them until after next season.
At a minimum. And then it's going to take even longer for them to be in the role that Cam Fowler is currently
so you're not blocking anybody. Those contracts come off of the books when Broberg is essentially ready for that raise. It was the perfect move to bring in somebody, and they were looking at this in the offseason. So it goes to show you they knew they needed another top 4 defenseman, and they got it in Broberg, and they said, well, we got to go get another one because of Leddy's injury.
He's Alex. That's Grant Francis. I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up at the 1 o'clock hour, we'll talk to Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie. He joins us each and every week here on the show, typically on Fridays. This week he'll join us on a Tuesday because of the holiday. So Mike McKenna going to join us in the 1 o'clock hour. Coming up next, time for the Junk Drawer here on 101 ESPN.
up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Let's dive into the junk drawer with Alex Ferrario and Grant Francis. I'm Brandon Kiley. You're listening to BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. This is not a best of edition. We are here live for you. That's right. We do this thing live on Monday and Tuesday of Christmas week, and then not again until next Monday. Here on BK and
best
Ferrario.
of Thursday and Friday. But that's fine. Right now, we're live and in person.
Fastlane coming up at 2 o'clock. You got a best of edition of their show. All right, Alex, let's dive into the junk drawer. What do you got for us today?
So I saw anytime you see something trending on X, Twitter, whatever you still call it, you always kind of click on it because it piques your fancy, right? Well, I saw Texas Roadhouse was trending, and I love me some Texas Roadhouse. Those buttered rolls are incredible.
It's, in my opinion, the best chain restaurant.
Totally agree with you. And so clicked on it.
Most often.
I wanted to find out what was going on there. And somebody posed a question that said, is Texas Roadhouse an acceptable first date destination? And it was kind of a 50-50 split when you read through some of the comments. There's some people that are saying, nah, you got to go out and make it fancier. It's too loud. It's dirty, blah, blah, blah. Boy, I just wholeheartedly agree with that. Or disagree with that. Like, Texas Roadhouse, like, I always used to go, like, Italian would be the first stop for us to make it kind of like fancy. Yeah, I'd go fancy. But then I would go Texas Roadhouse, like, right away with that. You're telling me I can get steak, some really good appetizers, some rolls? This is a perfect spot for a first date.
I don't really understand what the argument would be against
I don't know.
Texas
Maybe
Roadhouse.
it's because people, like, haven't been to Texas. Because the comments that I typically saw was like, oh, it's dirty. There's peanuts on the floor. They don't do that anymore.
And even if they did, I mean, who cares?
It's peanut shells. It's not like you're sitting there throwing the scraps of your
I would
food.
say a baseball game is an acceptable first date. And guess what?
There's peanuts.
Peanut shells
Well, there's a lot
everywhere.
more on the floor at baseball games that you're not aware of, but
I've got a list for you, Alex.
Okay.
The 30 most popular places that people go for a first date.
Oh, okay.
Number 1, what would you guess? The most popular place is not necessarily a restaurant. I will tell you it is.
So it's like it's a restaurant name, right? Or it's not like places.
Starbucks. Starbucks is number 1.
That's a lame date.
Number 2, In-N-Out Burger would be the second.
Is that considered
most popular.
sit down? Isn't
Must
that like
have been in California?
Isn't that like fast food?
Yes, it's
Man,
like
people want to dates
like
to
going
go
to
quick
Shake
these
Shack
days.
probably would be the closest comp in St. Louis. Number 3, Chick-fil-A.
Oh, come on.
I would find it to be totally understandable if you go to Chick-fil-A.
I would be insulted if I was taken to Chick-fil-A on a date. Don't take me to fast food. And I know Chick-fil-A is not fast food, but like take me to a restaurant.
I'd be totally
take me to where somebody is serving me.
I
have standards.
It might make me more likely to go with that person on a second date if they took me to Chick-fil-A on the first one.
That's lame.
Number 4, Central Park in New York. That obviously isn't an option for us here in St. Louis. Number 5, Panera / St. Louis Bread Co.
What is happening?
Dude, I think people apparently just have way too high standards as to where they're going for their first dates. I think this is totally in line with what I would expect. Like, Starbucks, to me, a coffee shop in general, perfect first
Aren't
date.
you trying to impress the individual?
No, not on a first date. The first time I'm going out with you, I'm not spending $50 on you.
I agree with that. I thought first impressions were important, and you just take me to
that's about whether or not we connect.
Yeah.
Not about the place that I'm going to go. If you need me to spend money on you, then this ain't going to work.
That's I am totally off on that one to where I think you got to set a standard of what you're looking for.
If somebody is trying to have me set a standard for them on the first date, then we're not going to be
like, let's go to Long John Silver for our first date. Like,
well, that wouldn't be my choice, but
I think
that's a little different.
I
than
think
going
you got to
to
go
some of these
somewhere
other
where
spots.
you can actually have some time and like enjoy each other rather than sit down, eat, and then sit and stare at each other. And be like, all right, now what?
What's the difference though between going to what did you recommend?
Well, any sit down restaurant.
As opposed to like Panera? Panera's a sit-down restaurant.
Yeah, but
in fact, I actually feel like it's less. You got to get in and out because you don't have somebody serving you.
Yeah, but then I feel
can
like
go up to the counter, take your stuff, go sit down, and we can take our own time.
See, I feel like that's awkward because then when you're done eating, it's like, okay, well, what do we do now? Whereas, like, when you're out to eat, you have all of that time while you're waiting for your food to talk and spend time and catch up.
Once you're done eating, you talk.
It's
you
weird.
go take your stuff, you set it down, and you talk.
No, it's weird.
Drink a coffee, whatever.
It's weird, man.
To me, if the person is going to complain about the location of the first date, they're probably not going to be for me anyway. too high maintenance at that point.
See, no, and I'm not saying it's about the price. I'm saying it's about the spot. I feel like
I don't feel like I'm understanding what you're saying.
I'm not. I don't know how to explain it, but like what I'm saying is like I don't want to go somewhere where it's like fast food in and out. I want to go somewhere where there's like.
Sometimes that's a good thing, though. If it goes poorly, you're done.
It can get you either way, right? Like if it's going really well, okay, cool. Let's go do something else afterwards. Let's go grab some ice cream. Let's go do whatever. If it's going poorly, like you said,
I haven't gone on a first date.
There's no issues here. I don't have to stay for the next course. I'm not waiting 20 minutes to get my food out of the kitchen. We got our food. Hey, it's really great to meet you. I just got a call. I got to go back and do something at work, whatever, right?
A BS excuse.
Sure, but I mean, both of you know this ain't going well. We're going to go our separate ways. You can't really do that, though, if you're waiting for the check from the server for 15 minutes.
The text line is like totally disagreeing with me, and I haven't been on a first date since 2011, so maybe times have changed a little bit.
I feel like there's another one on here is Topgolf. I feel like that's actually a little much.
I think
for
so,
a
too.
First date. I think that's like a second or a third. And I think it's a really great date spot, don't get me wrong. But the first date, I don't feel like I'm trying to be... Like, you're paying for an hour together there, at a minimum. I don't know that I'm ready to immediately dive into the deep end of, I'm going to be here for an hour, we're going to be playing golf against one another together here. That feels a little aggressive. That's like a second, third, maybe fourth.
That doesn't even feel like a... That feels like a group outing.
I think you could do
that feels like a meetup.
Yeah.
Before a date.
You can do two people, but I think it's more fun with the group of like 4 or 5 people.
Agreed. I feel like that's more of a, like you said, Alex, you're getting ready to go out with a group together, and then like you start out or end at Topgolf, whatever. I could see that working out that way as well. I think breweries are a good spot for a first date.
I think the movies are a terrible first date spot.
Yeah, you can't talk.
Yeah. I hate the idea of going to a movie for a first date.
I could see that if you do something else with it. It can't be a movie on its own. You've got to go to like dinner and a movie. I could see that working out.
I feel like movies either like deep into the relationship or like the third or fourth date to where you've already established the relationship and it's like, now let's just go spend time together.
Unless I already know the person, I wouldn't do dinner and a movie on the first date, because what if dinner doesn't go well? Well, then I don't have to talk to you. Movie?
And then you pull I'm going to go to the bathroom and leave.
Somebody said BK is a cheap ass. It's not about me being cheap. It's about like, not trying to spend a boatload of money on that first
But
date.
that's why I think Texas Roadhouse is so perfect. It's not a boatload of money, but it's also Texas Roadhouse is fine, and it's a good atmosphere.
I would say my ideal first date, if I was starting to date again now, which please don't make me do that, Kara.
I tell my wife that all the time. Please never leave me.
It would be a coffee shop. I would be a morning coffee shop kind of guy, and that's...
Yeah, I think mine would still be...
early afternoon.
I think mine would still be on the hill. It would be like a Pietro's, a Favazza, something like that.
That is a really fancy first date.
I like to set the standard. Like, I'm a fancy guy. I like to set the standard pretty well.
I think in the summer, baseball games are a really good first date as well.
Oh, I can't do that because I sweat, and once you start sweating, there's nothing more unappealing than looking at a guy that you're going on a first date with who is just drenched.
The nice thing about going to a baseball game in St. Louis is like, you can go over to Ballpark Village first, grab a couple of drinks, go over to the baseball game, and then like if you decide, hey, like, we don't need to stay for this whole thing, you can either go back and grab a bite to eat somewhere or just head out afterwards. Go down to Four Hands, grab a beer there, do whatever. There's a lot of different potential options that are kind of right in that general area. Baseball games in St. Louis.
I feel like we've learned a lot about each other on our dating experiences right now. And two of us hope we never have to date again in our lives.
Somebody said BK offers to cook for her, just gets food from the Schnucks Hot Bar.
What are you going to give her? You can't do that, man.
Can I ask you if I was in the wrong about something yesterday?
I like this game.
I don't like where this is headed, Go. You started with the hot food bar at the grocery store. Now you're asking if you did something wrong.
So we've obviously been incredibly busy over the past couple of weeks. Kara took care of Luca while I was out of town. I was down in Mexico City. So she's like solo parenting, right? I get back on Saturday. Kara had something scheduled for Sunday with some of her girlfriends. So I'm watching Luca. Yesterday, we had Grant's Farm with her family for the lights. So last night, we're on our way home, and Kara's like, hey, I need to stop at the grocery store real quick. I've got to make appetizers. We're doing Christmas with her family tonight, this evening for Christmas Eve. Kara's been at home with Luke all day because he doesn't have daycare this week. That was the other thing. Yesterday, we watched Luca. Mondays, we don't have daycare in general. So last night, we're on our way home. She's like, hey, I got to go to the grocery store. I got to make appetizers. So I was like, what do you mean you got to make appetizers? It's like 9:30 at this point. She's like, well, I've got to make something for tomorrow. I said... can we make something pre-made? Like, is that an option for us? Can we get something that's pre-made and bring that to Christmas for your family? She's like, well, I gotta make something. So why don't you get stuff that would be to make and then have a backup of something that is pre-made?
It's an appetizer.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't in the wrong there?
No, it's an
Okay,
appetizer.
okay, cool, great.
Yeah, no, an appetizer, you just go get some dip and chips and say, like, here you go.
Cool. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't in the wrong.
Yeah, sorry, Kara. I'm going to side with BK on this one.
It wasn't a fight or anything, but
if this was like you had to bring a side or like a main course, then you have to cook that.
Really?
Yeah. Then you
even then I would be like,
no, you can't go to like the frozen food section.
Would anybody know?
I mean, I would know.
Unless the only way is like if it was predetermined that she was bringing a specific appetizer.
Sure. Of course.
Then
then you signed up for it. This is on you.
But like main dish, you can't bring something pre-made. Main dish, you gotta put some effort into it.
I don't know, man.
That's such a trash move. It's dessert or appetizer you could get pre-made. You can't go main dish pre-made.
I'm bringing cookies that I got from the local bakery.
You walk in with a frozen lasagna and be like, hey, just throw this in the oven at 350 for an hour.
I got barbecue that I made, except that it's from Salt and Smoke down the street. They've been working on this for the last 24 hours.
This tastes a lot like Salt and Smoke brisket. Oh, no, it's me. I made it myself.
I've been working hard on this over the past few days. All right, coming up next, this is the first time we're truly going to get answers on what an Eli Drinkwitz quarterback looks like. Are we excited to see it? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex and Grain on BK. So you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. 50 more minutes, Alex. You got 50 minutes for the rest of your life.
I could do 6 more hours. For the rest of my life? What does that mean?
50 minutes for the rest of your life.
Hold on, I just glossed over that. What does that mean?
Don't worry about it. Don't think too hard about it. Mike McKenna is going to join us here in about 10 minutes or so. Former NHL goalie. He'll talk a little bit about the Blues with us here on the show. Alex, I do want to talk about some of the news over the last couple of days, which is that Missouri has its quarterback. Bo Pribula. It was announced yesterday that he is going to get, it was reported yesterday, about $1.5 million from Mizzou to be their next starting quarterback. CBS Sports had that report. Now, none of those facts can actually be confirmed or anything by the schools. They're not allowed to say that publicly, but it seems like the numbers are starting to come out more regularly. The guy that transferred to Duke, the former Tulane quarterback, he apparently got a $4 million deal per year to be the quarterback at Duke. So these guys are getting paid to put in context where Bo Pribula is going to be for the Tigers next year. But the number signifies this is your guy. He wasn't brought in here for any kind of competition. You're not paying $1 million for a quarterback to have him come in and be a backup next year. Bo Pribula is going to be Missouri's starting quarterback. Alex, it is a little bit of a surprise to me. Like, if you had gone back to the start of the portal season, and we identified, okay, what should Missouri be looking for? I thought, okay, a guy that has proven history at a Power 5 level that can come in and at least stabilize the position at a minimum. Guy like Malik Murphy, who previously was a quarterback at Duke. He was one of those players. Fernando Mendoza, who was at Cal, has since transferred to Indiana. He announced that earlier today. He would have been one of those guys. Miller Moss, who was their first option. USC started there, has since transferred to Louisville, chose them over Missouri. Those guys all fit into that criteria. Pribula does kind of. He was a backup quarterback at Penn State. He did start a game or two, but has mostly been a change of pace player for them. A very good runner, okay as a thrower thus far, just not a lot of experience in that regard. And that is what surprises me about this option for Missouri. Missouri went with a bit of an unknown, and they paid him a lot of money, allegedly, reportedly, and they're all in with him next year. Now, every indication is that he's a great leader. We know he's got really good legs, and it's just a question of, like, how is he going to develop on the passing side of things? This is the first time that we will find out what an Eli Drinkwitz recruited and developed quarterback looks like at Mizzou. Alex, what are you most curious about in terms of what that means for Missouri long term?
I think it's going to be the leadership part that you just mentioned, because the one thing about Brady Cook was, like, he seemingly was a really good leader for a group of guys, especially last season, not this most recent one, but the year prior, 2023, in terms of, look, you go out there and you go against some of these top teams and you find a way to stay competitive. Last year, it just felt like the offense was never off. And when you say it's kind of Brady Cook-esque in terms of what they're getting in this Pribula, it makes you a little concerned, because it's like, okay, well, you didn't have a guy who had a great arm, and that was kind of your downfall this past season because you couldn't connect on those game-breaking plays. But more than anything, it was, how do you manage a football game? And that's what I think the biggest question mark has been about the quarterbacks over these last few seasons, is how do you manage a football game? A game like 2 years ago against LSU. How do you find a way to win that football game? And that's where I just kind of like the unknown, but I'd like to see what Drinkwitz is going to do with this one, because my biggest question mark on him isn't his ability to recruit guys or bring guys over from the portal, because he's been crushing that defensive side, offensive side. He's brought in some really good, talented players. But can you go out there and find the guy who can lead the group that you've put together to the area that you haven't been to yet through that adversity like you saw this past season?
Yeah, I think Brady was really good at that. I think that stuff I don't really have a lot of questions about with Pribula. So Micah Parsons tweeted after Pribula entered the portal. Parsons previously played at Penn State. He's familiar with the program very well. Said, wish you the very best. You did it right. Got your degree. True class act. Best of luck. Then Sean Clifford, former Penn State quarterback, also tweeted this. Cannot emphasize enough how much I love this dude. A winner, competitor, leader, great teammate. Whatever program picks him up is going to be lucky. Go be great. That was the backup quarterback at Penn State who got those kinds of well wishes from guys that ended up going to the NFL that were teammates of his previously at Penn State. That's pretty big, man. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of stuff you don't see very often. And there's a great story today. I thought Ben Hochman did a fantastic job with this after talking to Bo Perbula's high school coach about what he added to their team as a leader. The leadership stuff, zero questions for me on. James Franklin, if you listen to what James Franklin, the head coach at Penn State, had to say about Perbula whenever he decided to announce, hey, I'm going to have to transfer, glowing comments about his backup quarterback. So I think all of that stuff's going to be fine. I'm just curious how he develops a passer, because that was the biggest issue with Brady as well. As Brady got in, and I think he developed a lot compared to what he was at the beginning of his career at Mizzou, but there was just a glass ceiling to what he could be. And I say that as somebody that is one of the biggest Brady Cook defenders that you will find among Mizzou fans. I want to see what that looks like. What does it look like when Eli Drinkwitz has his time to really recruit, identify, and then develop the quarterback that he wants at Mizzou? We have not seen that just yet. Thought maybe that could have been the case with Sam Horn. I think it's eventually going to be the case with Matt Zollers. This is his first real opportunity to be able to get that done, and he's investing heavily in it. All right, he's Alex Ferrario. That's Grant Francis. I'm Brandon Kiley. Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie, joins us next to break down the Blues here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Grant Francis, I'm Brandon Kiley. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, the former NHL goalie. He's Mike McKenna, who joins us each and every week here on the show, typically on Fridays. This week, with the holidays being out for the rest of the week, he's joining us on a Tuesday, and we appreciate his time as always. Mike, happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you and yours. How you doing today, my friend?
Well, you know what? A little under the weather, but I'm going to make the most of it today. It's been a really good couple of days of Macadoodles leading up to it, and I think I worked myself so hard I got a little flu bug. So
I was in Mexico City last week, Mike. I know all about that.
Yeah, well, that might have been the old Montezuma.
Yeah, I was going to say, his wasn't the flu bug. His was the taco bug.
And went through all of us. We had 5 guys, and 4 of us at it at some point on the trip. It was beautiful.
That's life. But you know what? Things are good, man. It's holiday season, Christmas time. Blues won a game last night. Looked really good in the process. So a lot of good things going on.
That's right. So let's start with that. 4-0 win last night on the road at the Red Wings. Heading into this holiday off days, I guess they have. Let's start with the obvious, which is Dylan Holloway with another big game for him, a hat trick, first of his career in the NHL. Mike, I feel like we talk with you every week about the latest great thing that Dylan Holloway has done, and this week is no different. Has he opened your eyes at all differently than he did previously with the latest great thing that he's done on the ice?
You know what really struck me is the other night we were at the game, and it was Kirkwood Hockey Night at the Blues game, right? So we're there with the kids, and we're down there watching warm-ups, and Tall Man's right behind my daughters, and it's just kind of a cool deal. And my oldest daughter's watching Joel Hofer, her favorite player. She's a goalie, makes sense. But really caught my eye was Dylan Holloway in warm-ups. And if you get there early, watch this guy. Flying around, cutting back, stick handling. I don't think I really appreciated how top-end his skill level is until I saw that in warm-ups. And that's when you see those habits kind of permeate through a player. That's a guy who is clearly doing that stuff all the time in practice, if it's coming out in warm-ups. And, you kind of see it in the game, and you hear it even in post-game press conferences when everybody's talking about how Dylan shoots the puck. And Binnington last night talking about it, how it's just on and off the blade, a lot of zip, quick release. And you saw it last night, scored in 2 different ways. 3 if you count the empty net goal, but big slap shot, big release. Those were things that I really didn't know were in his tool bag. I knew he was fast. I knew he was hard on pucks, but really his top-end skill set has really surprised me, and it took me seeing him in warm-ups to understand this is somebody who really works at his craft.
On top of his skill on the offensive side, Mike, you just see the commitment to the defensive side of the game, and that goes for a lot of the forwards in that game last night against Detroit. We talked last Friday after that Binnington game where he was yanked against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and we said, look, this is just a game that they're not playing well in front of them. How fitting is that you get a shutout for Jordan Binnington against Detroit going into the Christmas break?
That's a good feeling for the goalie and for the team. Anytime you go into a break and you've played well, it's a good feeling, but also the Blues really limited chances. Yeah, Binnington made a couple of big saves. Third period was a little bit more called upon, especially than the first, but for me it's never been a case of if this guy's struggling. It's just, can the team put everything together in front of him? And last night their gaps were so much better for the Blues. You really had the D tied up into play, especially Falk and Parayko to me were just unstoppable. You couldn't get around them as tight as they were. And so it helps a lot for him to have that support. But it's also something he's done all along. We knew he could. It's just, everybody crossing your line of sight. You don't have people chasing around. It was a very structured game. And you really saw it. Guys, it all comes down to how the D moves the puck. Texier's goal, dude, those 4 guys touched that thing before it was down and in. It was 18 seconds in the second period. To me, that was it. That was the game right there.
We're talking to Mike McKenna here on 101 ESPN. Mike, I haven't had the opportunity. I would imagine the guys talked to you last week about Cam Fowler and his trade over here to the Blues, but we've since been able to see a decent amount of what he can potentially bring to the lineup. What have you thought about his presence and what that means for the Blues on that top pair?
Yeah, the first week or two was some transition. You could see it. I said it last week. He was still doing some ducky-in things, but what? Can we trademark that?
Yeah, we have to.
But what Fowler's always done well is he's a pretty good puck mover. He's pretty good at stretching the zone. He's got good vision. I think he's a nice left-handed foil for Parayko. when they're out there together. You got one really rangy guy. You got another guy who sees up the ice pretty well and is steady. I think he's just given the Blues another layer of puck-moving, capable defensemen, which, they were a little bit shy on that at the start of the year, and at this stage of the game, Fowler, he still probably moves the puck a little bit better than Suter, maybe not a ton, but they both can do that, and they both provide depth. So just in general, I think the Blues have become more aware having Fowler in the lineup. All that experience, all that success, not to mention how hungry this guy must have been to get out of Anaheim and play for a team that's going somewhere. You know what I mean? I think that you can really see that energy when he plays.
Mike, this team is close to wrapping up the month of December that has just been a juggernaut in terms of the amount of road games that they've played, the amount of games that they played in a small window time frame. From a player's perspective, is that November, December range some of the toughest hockey to go through as the players? And is it possible for the Blues that some of the worst part of their game could be behind them now once they wrap up December?
Maybe only because they had so many road games and the schedule's been a slog for them. Typically during the year, it's kind of a race to Christmas. It goes by really fast until you get to the holiday break. For me, the hardest time was always February. Just the end of January, after All-Star break, that month of February just sucks. Yeah. You're just in no man's land, man. You've just gotten the first part done. You get a break. Then you get into January, then there's All-Star break. For these guys in the NHL, they're going to the Bahamas. Huh. And then you still have 2 more months before you have to play playoffs, right? And some teams are clearly out of it. Some teams are in the hunt. That's the pinpoint there. Valentine's Day is when you're just going, oh, man, we are absolutely in one right now, and I can't wait for it to be the end of March or early April because you're just slogging through it. But I do think, though, for the Blues, especially with the number of home games they have coming up, guys, this is big-time advantageous for them. They have to have been dying to get home and have their own bed more than they have for the first half of the season.
Yeah, especially with what they've had lately. It's been nuts, some of these road trips. It's been 3 consecutive games, home game. 3 consecutive road, home. It's crazy the way that this travel's gone for them. Hey, Mike, we'll get you out of here on that. Appreciate you taking some time to play through the pain today here on the show. We wish you nothing but the best with the family. Happy holidays for you guys. I know you're going to have a ton of stuff going on out there, out of Macadoodles as well. What can the good people expect as we get into this holiday season?
Well, expect the best customer service in town. That is the number one priority for us at Macadoodles. But I tell you what, our selection is as good as it gets right now. We just got a massive, massive delivery in today because we'd been cleaned out over the holidays. So if you show up at Macadoodles before 5 o'clock today, we are shutting down Christmas Eve at 5 o'clock. We're going to be fully stocked, ready for you. Get all those last-minute gift ideas for your friends and family. And there's still a couple of allocated items sitting out there, some Castle and Key rye, some Castle and Key wheated. There's some other things. And our wine room's just been popping, man. All the bubbles right now, running big specials over there. So we're excited. It's been a good first couple of months here. And we still have a couple days after Christmas here, right before New Year's, for everybody to come see us and get ready for those big events, ready to pop some bottles, and we'll be able to help facilitate it for you guys.
And if you guys are interested in beer as well, the beer room over there is incredible. I expect, Alex, some places you go, okay, I've got the same 12 different breweries that I'm going to get stuff from. They had a Scratch beer that I had from over there, Scratch Brewery. It was a basil IPA. I'd never seen anything like it. I was like, I'm going to go ahead and take this one off the shelf. It was fantastic. We had that for Thanksgiving, so they're going to hook you up over there at Macadoodles. Mike, appreciate the time as always, man. Thanks so much. Get yourself feeling better. We'll talk with you again next week.
Appreciate it, guys. Like always, I'll see you at Brian and Fizey Road out in Dardine Prairie. Macadoodles. Everybody have a great Christmas.
Absolutely. That's Mike McKenna. Appreciate his time as always. Alex, you're going out there this week? I'm
going to be there Friday. I'm going to get some good wine for Katie and I on New Year's Eve.
What are you, a red or a white wine guy?
She's more of a white wine. I'm fine either way. I just prefer the sweet over the dry.
So you're a Riesling kind of guy, probably.
Yeah. Okay. She's big into the white, so that's what I think we'll shoot for. But I'm going to take her up there. We're going to go up there without our kids. We'll go up there and we'll do some wine tasting.
Make sure to clarify.
And just wanted to make sure, just in case somebody decided to text in.
Yeah, we went without Luca too.
Yeah, just making sure. But yeah, she's a sweet wine, white wine. So we're gonna be out there, get some New Year's Eve wine for us.
There you go. It's a place to go. It is Macadoodles out in Darden Prairie. Mike McKenna will get you hooked up over there. He's Alex Ferrario. That is Grant Francis. I'm Brandon Kiley. If you missed any of our conversation with Mike McKenna or Jeremy Rutherford earlier today, you can check that out over at the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Center.
Coming up next, time for our NFL weekend look ahead. Yeah, we're doing it on a Tuesday. The NFL weekend begins on Wednesday this week, so we'll go ahead and get into that next year on 101 ESPN.
Greg Francis here with a SportsCenter update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues offense came to life last night as they put up 4. Dylan Holloway had a hat trick, his first hat trick of his career. The Blues' first hat trick of the season. Alexander Texier added a goal as well, and Jordan Binnington also came to life. He posted a 19-save shutout as the Blues defeated the Red Wings in Detroit 4-0. Blues will hope to build on that as they welcome in the Nashville Predators' first meeting between the two teams this season here in St. Louis on Friday. Pregame will be at 6 o'clock, puck drop at 7 here on your home for the Blues, 101 ESPN. I'm Grant Francis. The SportsCenter update's been driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
All right, let's get into our NFL weekend look ahead. It sounds insane that I'm saying that. It's Tuesday.
Yeah.
And yet, this is the way that the NFL operates now. We've got 2 games tomorrow, Christmas Day on Netflix. It begins with Chiefs versus Steelers, a game that, by the way, if you're driving around tomorrow, you're going from one family's Christmas thing to the next. You'll be able to hear this game right here on your home of the NFL on Christmas Day, 101 ESPN.
Technically, yes, it is.
Chiefs versus Steelers. Pregame will start at 11 o'clock right here on 101 ESPN. Texans versus Ravens kick off at 3:30. So they'll be able to be heard here, seen on Netflix. Alex, I love both of these games.
Yeah, I do too.
For very different reasons. The Chiefs versus Steelers games, let's start there. I think the Chiefs are going to win this one. It scares the hell out of me to say that because I don't trust their tackle situation, and the Steelers do the thing through the air that gives the Chiefs problems. They're getting George Pickens back. He has officially been ruled as ready to go for this week. No injury designation. So it's a scary matchup. It's on the road, but the Chiefs have everything to play for here. They're a 2.5-point favorite. I would actually take them in this game. If we were doing our Pick'em challenge this week, we're taking this week off because it's so early in the week. I would take the Chiefs as one of my plays minus the 2.5. That's how confident I am, even though it's scary.
Yeah, I'm the opposite side of this. I'm pretty confident that the Steelers win this one.
I like it.
I think with Pickens back, you get a little bit more rejuvenation for that offense. You're right. Without any tackles, it is going to be a hell of a game for Patrick Mahomes dealing with Hayward and dealing with Watt. And then I saw that Jones was questionable. I don't know if he's playing or not.
My guess would be no. I don't know.
If he's not, man, that gives Russell Wilson more time to make those YOLO plays to George Pickens. So I actually like the Steelers plus 2.5. That would have been one of my plays.
Would you take the money line?
Yeah, I would. I'm 95% confident that the Steelers pulled up. There's a 5%
Would you have taken them in our Pick'em challenge?
I would have. I wouldn't have made it my 3-point play, but it probably would have been my 2-point play.
All right, on the late afternoon game, Ravens versus Texans. I just want to get answers on the Ravens. I feel like we've been talking about them all year, and
I don't feel like we're going to get answers from them.
I don't think so either, but the chance that we can is by them going out there and just looking great.
Yeah.
For an entire game against, we agree, Alex, I don't think the Houston is a great team, but they're a playoff team, and it's on the road. This is a spot that the Ravens have struggled in this season. I feel like people are kind of set in their corners on what the Ravens are at this point. There are some people that will tell you Lamar should be the MVP. His numbers are better than Josh Allen's this year, and they're a great team, and you're going to see it this year in the postseason. And there are others, probably more in our lane. Great. They're 10-5. They'll probably go 12-5 this season. Lamar's had a fantastic season once again. Let me see it when they go on the road in the playoffs and they go up against the Chiefs or the Bills. Let me see that. And when I see it and he succeeds, I will admit defeat. But until then, I can't. Alex, what are you expecting in this one? What are you looking for?
I'm expecting the Rams to have a really good game. I don't think the Texans are going to be a team that can find a way to stop both Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Frankly, they haven't really been able to get stops at all this season. And their offense is doing what Detroit's defense is doing in terms of they're falling by the wayside right now. You lose Tank Dell. You've already lost Stephon Diggs. Like, the options are dwindling for C.J. Stroud. Yeah, and the problem with that is you had 3 legit options, and your offense has never looked dominant like I expected it to be. So I'm done with the Texans. You're right. I want to see the Ravens play well on the road against a contender. But this is one of those games, it's kind of like what the Cowboys were last year. Every time I saw it, it's like, this is great, man. You look awesome, but I do not trust you until I see you do this in the postseason.
All right, so the Thursday night game is the Seahawks versus the Bears. We got a Wednesday game. We got 2 Wednesday games. We got a Thursday night game. Seahawks going on the road to take on Chicago. The Bears are the classic team this year that's like, oh, wow. Caleb Williams threw for 320 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Good game by him. And then you look at when those yards came. It's all garbage time. I think Caleb is going to be a good quarterback. I think this is a little bit of a tough spot for them. I do like the Seahawks a lot in this game. I wish it was a 3-point spread instead of 3.5, but I would take the Seahawks minus the 3.5, I think, in this one. And I would probably take the over. It's only sitting at 43.5 right now. I'd probably take the over.
I'd take the over, and I'm with you on the Seahawks. I think when these teams are in desperation mode like the Seahawks are, like you have to win to keep your hopes alive to win the NFC West. The Rams are taking on the Cardinals, so this is an opportunity for you to get an upper hand before you take on the Rams. I love the Seahawks in this one. The Bears just need a new coach. They just need a guy who could get the best out of Caleb Williams in that offense. They've got the weapons. Williams has got the arm. He just needs a little bit more confidence and a little bit more schemes working for him.
Yeah, no, they don't have a running game right now as well. Yeah. That's something that's bothering them. And the Seahawks have really improved this defense. This defense has totally transformed over the course of the season. If the Seahawks can find a little bit more of their running game, it'll be interesting to see what happens in that division down the stretch. All right. Get to the Saturday games. We got 3 of them. And then eventually we'll get to the Sunday slate, I swear.
Yeah, this is a full week of it, ladies and gentlemen.
Chargers versus Patriots. There's not a lot here other than this. I loved the Patriots last week against Josh Allen and the Bills. One reason, really tough spot for the Bills. They had 2 consecutive weeks where it was big games for them. They played really well. And then you just have this, like, major letdown spot. So that was part of it. The other thing is, man, I think Drake May is really freaking good.
Yeah.
He's not getting any of the accolades because his team is terrible around him. But I think that dude has shown me enough right now. I would not be shocked if he ends up long-term being the best quarterback from this year's class. Yeah. I know that sounds crazy right now because Jaden Daniels looks amazing and Bo Nix has been really good for the Broncos as well. Give me like 3 years. This Drake May situation, this take is not going to sound that crazy.
You hope so.
Do you have anything else that you find interesting about Chargers versus Patriots? Because for me, it's just seeing Drake May once.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Frankly, I think I said this last week. Like, I hope Travis Hunter's the guy that gets drafted by the Patriots.
That'd be fun.
To see a Drake May, Travis Hunter 1-2 punch moving forward. But no, like, this game doesn't intrigue me at all.
They're number 2 right now in the draft rankings.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you talk about a perfect scenario to get a Travis Hunter and have, like, that piece with Drake May. It's a 1-2 punch that you'd want to build if you're the Patriots. That's not the one that's intriguing to me as the other game that's played at 3:30 on Saturday.
Broncos versus Bengals. Yep. That one's awesome.
This is everything to me because if the Chiefs lose to the Steelers like I'm imagining, Bengals beat the Broncos, man, what a setup you've got for Bengals Chiefs because the Chiefs have to beat Cincinnati.
Bengals Steelers.
Or Bengals Steelers, yeah. The Steelers have to beat the Bengals to keep them out of the postseason because if the Broncos lose against the Chiefs, which if the Chiefs are going to be in desperation mode,
you would think so.
That's going to put the Bengals potentially in a playoff spot.
Colts have something to say about that as well. I think they're technically the team that would still have the tiebreaker over Cincy if they finish with the same record this year.
Yeah.
And the Colts have
the
Giants this week and the Jaguars next week. So they can lose to anybody.
Yep.
It's not out of the realm of the possible that they could end up losing one of those 2 games and then boom, suddenly you've got the Bengals in the playoffs. But I like the Bengals in that game. I like the minus the 3.5.
I do too. I think right now the Broncos' problem is they're going up against a couple of desperate teams in these final 2 weeks of the season, and desperation is never a fun thing to do if you're Denver.
All right, 7:00 game, Saturday night.
Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night.
Cardinals versus the Rams. I don't know what to do with either.
Is it weird that this feels like an easy win for the Rams? I'm kind of done with the Cardinals.
It should be. The spread indicates as much. It's a 6.5-point spread in favor of LA. I'm done with the Cardinals as well. It feels like I don't know what to do with Kyler Murray. I don't know what to do with him. Because there are moments over the course of the game that you watch him and you're like, there are 5 quarterbacks in the league that could do what he just did. Mm-hmm. Cannon of an arm, unbelievable at scrambling. And there are moments in the game that you're like, there are 5 quarterbacks in the league that would even attempt what you just did because of how stupid it was.
Yep.
And he just gets himself into these tough spots. Like last week, losing to Carolina, come on, dude. I know Carolina's playing much better. Bryce Young looks awesome. That dude's legit. He's a top 15 quarterback in the league right now.
Yep.
But they've lost 4 of their last 5. They were in a playoff spot, and then you've lost multiple times to Seattle. You lose against Carolina, and now you're just kind of done.
Yep.
Marvin Harrison Jr., talk about a dud.
Yeah.
This is not the guy that I expected him to be either.
He had that one game where it was 4 touchdowns, and you're thinking, holy bleep.
Yeah, and since then it's been like, okay, like he's a nice number 3 option.
I think you described it with Kyler Murray, though. You got a boneheaded quarterback. You got a guy who's going to be good occasionally, but he's going to make bad mistakes, and you don't win the football game. And, like, if you're the Cardinals, like, I like Jonathan Gannon. I think he's great. But if you're the Cardinals, man, you got to make a decision. Is this the coach that gets the best out of this quarterback, or is this quarterback just a coach killer?
I think it might be the latter.
Because
I think they're well coached.
Yeah, and you can't do anything about it now because you've put the contract on Kyler Murray, and that's the guy now. But, man, you might be getting into territory where you're going to be a 7 or 8 win team every single season because of him.
There are 7 different teams that I could say this about. I would love to see T. Higgins in that offense.
I'm with
T.
you.
Higgins next to Marvin Harrison Jr., you have a really good tight end in Trey McBride.
Got a running game.
I think they re-signed
James Conner,
if I'm not mistaken.
2-year deal, I think it was.
So if you've got all of that in place, you should be able to have success.
Mm-hmm.
The defense is desperate for help as well. They need talent on that side of the ball.
Yeah.
The problem is, like, they just keep ending up with these mid-round picks.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, right now picking 16th in next year's draft.
But that's the plague of this quarterback. He's going to get you 8 or 9 wins. You won't be a playoff team, but you're always going to be selecting in the spot that doesn't get you a game breaker.
Tough spot, man.
Yeah.
Really tough spot to be in. All right, now we are to the Sunday slate.
Finally, all right, ladies and gentlemen, coming up next.
Let's get to a few of these quick hitter style. Alex, if you could only sit down in front of the television and watch one game on Sunday this week, what would be the game that you are selecting?
Obviously, Raiders and Saints, guys, right? Who can score 3 points to win?
I'll give you the one game. You can go ahead and take it.
It's Packers and Vikings. It's Packers and Vikings. There's no other game that even intrigues me at all. Sure, the Falcons, Commanders, maybe, but this Packers-Vikings, I think, is going to tell you who the superior team is in the NFC because nobody really trusts the Lions now with the injuries. Vikings look like the better team, but do the Packers go out there and snap an 8-game win streak?
I'll go to the Sunday night game.
Mm-hmm.
Falcons versus Commanders, kind of interesting now that Michael Penix Jr. is at quarterback. I liked some of what we saw from him this past week. He didn't have to do much. They were playing against the Giants, who, as we mentioned previously, are terrible.
Yes.
So I don't really know what to expect out of him, but unlike their former quarterback, he's not a geriatric who has a walker to be able to move.
Truth.
So that is helpful on the football field, it turns out. The mobility just adds a totally new dimension to their offense. He also just looked comfortable. That was one of the things that I liked about watching him with Washington is he just never seemed frazzled. He always seemed in command of the offense, and they had some really good receivers for him there. And guess what? The Falcons have some really good weapons for him as well. I want to see what he looks like on the same field going up against Shaden Daniels. I'm glad we get that matchup of those two rookie quarterbacks going up against each other head-to-head. I really don't know what to expect. I would probably pick the Commanders, but I think it's a 50-50 proposition, so I'm excited to watch that one.
You got 2 mobile quarterbacks, too, so that's going to be the exciting thing about it.
All right. Upset pick of the week. If you had to pick one underdog, Alex, on Sunday to win outright, who are you going with?
This is easy. I'm taking the Panthers.
It's the one that I would
taking the Panthers +5. I think this is the end of the Buccaneers' playoff hopes after this week.
Am I seeing this right? Is that up to 8 points?
Did it really? I just pulled it up as +5 over on Circus Sports.
It is? Okay.
Yeah, it was +5 on that one. So, I mean, it could have gone up, but I don't think the Buccaneers are fun.
8 points, dude.
It's really at 8.
Is there an injury I don't know about? That seems way too high.
Is somebody coming back for Tampa Bay that I don't know about?
I don't know. That seems that feels like it's like is Bryce Young hurt?
No, I don't think so. It's in Tampa Bay.
Wow. That seems really high to me.
I would take the Panthers all day on that one. I think they win this straight up, and frankly, I think the Falcons beat the Commanders, and now you've got your division winner after this week.
If I was going with a different one, potential upset alert. Is DTR expected to start again this week for the Browns? Because that guy's
I didn't see anything.
Terrible.
I don't honestly think it matters who starts in Cleveland, though. Miami's not going to be able to play in Cleveland.
If Cleveland starts Jameis Winston, I like the Browns in that one.
Yeah.
If they start DTR, I want no part of selecting that game. If I was going with something else, I think I have to go away from the Sunday slate, and then we could go back to one of the other games. Like, give me the Texans at home against the Ravens.
You think so?
Like that. If I'm going to have to take an upset, I don't think this is a great week for upsets.
I could see the Cardinals.
So many teams.
I could see the Cardinals beating the Rams too as an upset, like a division matchup, familiar with each other. You know, like that's the one game that Kyler Murray looks incredible in.
If Daniel Jones was starting for the Giants, for example, The Giants could beat the Colts.
Yeah.
Colts on the road. They're always prone to something weird happening. Cowboys could beat the Eagles. That's another one that
especially if Jalen Hurts is in concussion
Cowboys
protocol.
have been playing some inspired football. Now that they've been once they got like eliminated from postseason contention, they're like, all right,
odd.
This is our time, boys.
Once again, though, Cooper Rush better than Dak Prescott? Question mark.
I wouldn't go there, but playing better than I expected.
This is awful for the Cowboys, though, by the way, because now they're going to be like
ruining their draft slot.
Well, and Mike McCarthy, he's a good coach, and now he's going to be back for another damn year, and you're going to do this whole rodeo again next year.
Dallas right now is picking 15th, despite having a just completely wasted season. They're going to pick 15th.
What a terrible season.
All right, last thing here, Alex, the overreaction Monday game. What's it going to be?
I think it's going to be the Lions. I think it's going to be the Lions either losing or not being able to wipe away the San Francisco 49ers. Like, I get the 49ers a legit shot at winning this football game. And if that happens, the Packers beat the Vikings, everyone's going to be like, oh, the Lions are over. And I know it's a Monday game, so I'm breaking the rules a little bit here. But I'm still not going to be done with the Lions because I think in the playoffs they can still put up 45 points. It's just going to be, can you make sure that the other team doesn't put up 46?
So here's one for you. It's a Sunday or it's a Saturday game, so maybe it won't get quite the reaction that it should. That Bengals versus Broncos game, if Joe Burrow throws for like 350, are we talking? If Joe Burrow ends up having a huge game, Steelers win against the Kansas City Chiefs, and now you've got a situation where like Bengals are very much alive for the playoffs in week 18. We talking about Joe Burrow in any of these like postseason award conversations suddenly?
I don't think so because I don't even with the high numbers, I don't think he can outdo what Josh Allen did. Because Josh Allen wins this, you're talking about, what is it? It would be 13 wins, potentially have 14 wins on the season. People thought he was going to be an 8-win quarterback.
Joe Burrow this year has 700 more passing yards and 13 more passing touchdowns than Josh Allen.
And I still think Josh Allen would be the MVP.
Okay. I think you're right. I do wonder if that becomes like one of those hipster conversations where we all know it's not actually going to happen. Kind of like the Saquon thing, right? We all knew Saquon wasn't actually going to win the MVP because he's a running back, and running backs, unfortunately, are ineligible for the award.
Those 13 more touchdowns for Burrow, are they even when you bring in the rushing touchdown by Josh Allen?
Josh Allen has 11 rushing touchdowns. Joe Burrow has 1, so it would be a difference of like 3. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it would still be Josh Allen. And it's the 14 wins versus the 9 wins on the season.
If you look at total yards from scrimmage, Joe Burrow has about 300 more than Josh Allen does on the season. So,
if you know what, if he would have played in the first couple of games, but also if they would have won a couple of those games, I think you'd have an argument.
He's Alex Ferrario. That is Grant Francis, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, we'll put a bow on this thing with the BK and Ferrario Rewind here on 101 ESPN. Alex, the reason that we bet with Circa Sports over in the state of Illinois is because you just win more money when you win. And what I mean by that is, okay, let's go over to the FanDuel Sportsbook. Let's put together a little 2-leg parlay for tomorrow. Chiefs minus 2.5, Ravens minus 5.5. I've got the 2 favorites. I've got them with their current betting lines. If I bet $100, I win about $255 over there. If I place the exact same bet over on the Circa Sports app in the state of Illinois, I'm winning $10 more on a $100 bet that I win. It just gives you the better odds. The best place to bet is with Circa Sports in Illinois. So while we've got all of these football games over the next 5 days, go ahead and download the app today. Make sure you place your bets with Circa Sports in Illinois.
They're so confident in their sports betting app that they're telling you to go check out the other lines because they know you'll be back. Those tight money line splits, making sure that they're keeping little of money as possible on those large market bets, the futures, those big parlays that BK just mentioned. And you got incredible customer service when there's issues at a ride, which rarely happen because you're talking with real people at Circa Sports Illinois. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
it back with the Daily Rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Lou, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
If you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com or the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Alex, what do you guys have planned for the holiday over the next couple of days?
So we got my family coming over tonight for Christmas Eve. We usually do one side of the family. Christmas Eve's big with my family, so we'll do the gifts. We do homemade dinner, enjoy the time. And then tomorrow we'll do the gifts with our girls in the morning. We go to Katie's mom's side in the afternoon, and then we're hosting tomorrow night. So just a lot of
hosting at your place too,
on
top of all
tomorrow
that?
night.
Do you
Yeah.
have the place already clean? What's your guys' philosophy on this? Do you is it full deep clean before people are coming over for the holidays?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just deep clean, mostly because 3 girls make it pretty filthy. So, yeah, it's wiped it all down. Luckily, I had it all cleaned a couple of days ago, so my wife was just a matter of getting the food prepped and just doing a quick mop over the floors.
Do you prefer hosting or going somewhere
Hosting.
else?
When you have 3 kids, I despise going anywhere other than my house. They've got their toys, they've got their stuff there, and bedtime is so easy because as soon as people walk out the door, it's like, boom, bath, bed, see you later.
With Luke, it's still easy for us because he can fall asleep in the car and then transfer over.
Well, and that's how, when we had Adelaide, I'll take her anywhere. Sure. I'll go anywhere. But now it's like once Emma came into the fold and then Olivia, it's like, oh, yeah, we don't leave the house. There's only certain scenarios.
Grant, you guys have anything going on over the next few days?
We had the family coming over tomorrow, and outside of that, I'll just be where I'm told to be.
That's the way to go.
I've got today we do with Kara's extended family, the big, Christmas Eve is when they really do their big Christmas shindig. Tomorrow we'll get together with a smaller portion of the family. And then Saturday, my mom, my sister, and her boyfriend are all going to drive down from Kansas City out here, spend the day with us, hang out with the little man. So we got an extended version of Christmas. And then at some point in January, we'll do our late Christmas with my dad's side.
It's great, too, because then as soon as tomorrow night's done with, it's like you just say, all right, Christmas is done, and now we just get to sit back and relax.
I love the Christmas holiday season. It also just the time commitment to it is it can be exhausting. And so you get to the end and it's like you just ran a marathon. You're like, oh,
you just sit down and you breathe.
Did it. Just high fives all around.
That's why we made a commitment.
You check the bank account statement. You're
make
like,
sure you survive.
Where we at?
Yeah, we haven't done that one yet, but that's why we made the commitment. Once we had Emma and we were like, all right, we've got 2 kids now. We are limiting the amount of times we're in the car for holidays because then the kids get upset and then you're screaming the whole time. It's not fun for anybody.
And then you don't actually spend any time anywhere. It's just, all right, hey, everybody. Hey, okay, cool. See ya. Bye. Bye, everybody. It's
spread it out. Doesn't have to be on the day. You can make it around the day.
It's one thing I'm really grateful about with Kara's family is that they all end up going to one place, which makes it a little easier.
Makes life easy.
For Alex Ferrario and Grant Francis, I'm Brandon Kiley. Want to thank all of you guys. Feeling thankful around the holiday season. The ratings have been very, very good for us over the past few months, and you guys are what make what we do possible. We could not do this without all of you making us a part of your day. So sincere thank you for that. We'll talk a little bit more about this next week as we get closer to the new year and everything, but cannot thank you guys enough for tuning in. We will talk to you guys next week. Be safe around the holidays. Have a very Merry Christmas, and we will talk to you next week here on BK and Ferrario.